I am nothing if not tasteful.
I'm drinking wine.
Shoutcast!
Holy cow, you just clipped Discord.
Good. That was maybe a third. That was a third of my power. Wake up, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 4th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Palashti, joined by my co-hosts, Jason Wright and Sean Mibers. If you decide you like us, and you want to see Sean pop his hip out of place, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Sean, how's that hip?
You know, I'm having a week. I'm having a week. My hip popped out of place temporarily. My stupid regulator on my keg blew out and dumped all my CO2, so now I got cider that I can't drink.
Which one are you more upset about?
I'm more upset about the cider.
Yeah.
Because then when my hip had popped out of place and I wanted to go get a drink, I couldn't. It was insult to injury.
You've got one hip on each side, and now you have no cider.
Yeah. Very upset. Stuck
Jason.
drinking whiskey and ginger ales tonight. Jason,
what did you pop out this week?
I popped out my wallet to buy a graphics card, and nobody will let me do it.
Isn't it crazy that you can live in a world designed to take your money at every turn, and then the one time you want to spend way too much of it, it just won't let you?
Yeah, it really is. And I've had a lot of conversations with like Tyler about this, and he thinks that I'm like fueling the problem with my incessant need to own this thing. And so by me joining these Discord servers and being in these Twitch streams where people are conversing and dropping links and stuff when stock drops, that's contributing to the problem.
It is.
And I just don't know, because it's like I'm on these Discord chats. They'll drop a link. I will click the link on my phone. I will click Apple Pay. That's 2 clicks. It's probably about 3 seconds from the time the link goes to the time I'm trying to pay. And then, Newegg is like, yeah, we're having problems. Can't process your order. So been a lot of that, been a lot of going to Amazon and adding things to my cart and then them being like, no, your cart's empty. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's kind of frustrating. It's really frustrating. And this is coming from someone who built a PC in 2017, which was the other time that cryptocurrency spiked, and the other time that was really hard to find a graphics card. Sure. And even then, it was not this hard. This is insane.
Yeah, I hadn't put 2 and 2 together about the cryptocurrency stuff because, that's how you mine most currencies. Maybe I was going to talk about Pi. I have so many Pi coins now. For like 37.
Talk about Pi.
I got Pi coins. The cryptocurrency you don't have to mine. So,
but what are Pi coins, Karch?
Dude, I couldn't tell you. 39 and counting. That's how many I have.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I know. I'm the best. I'm going to
like
be rich
8.
one day, boys.
Jeez.
It boggles my mind.
I got 17.
17? All right. That's half. That's fine. That works. Did you get Katie?
Not yet.
I got to get your wife, man. They do anything for you. They love us. They let us do this podcast.
Including bring you Gatorade when you pop your hip out of place.
There you go. Well, that's the least you could do when there's no cider.
Momentarily, you thought it was a Charlie horse.
Oh, that's happened too. I've had that happen. Yeah, but back to Jason's...
else I knew that hurt that much.
Back to Jason's gripe, which I don't know if we stumbled upon the actual gripe this week, but I don't understand how these companies just don't have pre-order systems in place. Like, I ordered a pan for my wife for Christmas that is only just now shipping because it was on backlog. But I put money down on it. I pre-ordered it. They took the order, and they told me, when it's done, we'll ship it.
Yeah,
Why can't
it's weird to me that there's no, list that they just build up.
And there's ways to identify a person such that you can't get on the list more than once. Or at least it's such a pain that no one will do this thing.
Right, like require a physical address and say one per physical address.
Or even if they do, okay, fine, but still, at least I'm on a list. I'm 500, I'm 7,000. It doesn't matter. My card, my console, my frying pan is coming to me. Like,
exactly. And see, this is the debate I had with Tyler, which is, I will get into why it's very hypocritical, but he told me the reason they won't do that is because people will freak out because you're about to get told you're not getting it until December of 2021.
You know what? He's not wrong. It's true. The FOMO and the fervor and all the things that like push people.
Capitalism, comrade.
But here's the thing. He's on the EVGA Step Up program. So they have a program where if you buy a graphics card, if you claim you're going to step up within 90 days of purchase, then when you put your name on the list for the card you want and when it becomes available, you will pay the difference, send your old card back, and they'll send you the new card. So he's on a list. He's telling me not to freak out for not being on a list. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm done with it. But that's been really infuriating.
Sounds like it. I'm nervous about how it's going to shape up come May when I'm looking for my PS5.
Oh yeah, that's something we didn't talk about. I have read, and I don't know if this is true, but I have read that the shortages are tied together because of GDDR6 RAM or memory or whatever it is. Apparently Samsung's the ones who make those, and for whatever reason, I guess they maybe shrunk the chip size on it, and so they're getting lower yield than they typically do, and all these components need this particular like raw material. So you're talking graphics cards, CPUs, stuff that goes into PS4, stuff that goes into Xboxes, stuff, so what these companies are doing is, it's all this raw material. They're making the highest margin items, and that's what they're selling. And they are deprioritizing the PlayStation 5 CPUs and GPUs that are custom from AMD because they're also in this higher end market of graphics cards, and they're allocating their resources to the higher margin items. So the AMD CEO came out and said that these shortages could continue into the summer.
Yeah, I saw that.
So,
well, that's poopy. Anyway,
thanks a lot, PC Master Race, screwing us console users over.
Right? They're getting their revenge for having the
a bunch of
for getting such terrible ports of Horizon Zero Dawn and Nier and Arkham Asylum or Arkham City.
Because that's console's fault somehow.
It is housekeeping. Like, sub, follow us on Twitter. Give Karch a like, give him a thumbs up, let him know you exist. We are at Never Free to Play.
Please
subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast services, make sure to leave a 5-star review. That's all I have. Let's go on over to shout-outs. Karch.
I want to give one sad, forlorn shout-out to my local GameStop at the Boot Ranch Plaza by the Target and the Five Guys. It's closing. Despite record stock prices, which have already plummeted back to still in crazy numbers, but far more reasonable as far as math is concerned. It's closing. They didn't get any of that money, apparently. And I don't buy physical that often anymore, if ever, really. I've pretty much made the leap into all digital, but it's been there for a really long time. And so there's memories in general there of getting games and, browsing the store. And it represents all GameStops in a way. But most importantly, my daughter and I had created a tiny little tradition where we'd go on daddy-daughter dates to Five Guys. It's the same strip, and so it's like a 2-minute walk from store to store. We get the burgers and the fries and the shake, and then we go to the thing. And, of course, being a little girl, couldn't care less about the video games. But, God bless GameStop, they've got a bunch of other crap, like My Little Pony stuffies and stuff. And so she'd gotten a couple from there, and she got hooked on going there afterward. And it broke her heart when I told her that it wasn't going to be there anymore, and that made me sad. Oh. So, goodbye, GameStop.
Pour one out.
Pour one out.
Pour one out for GameStop. Because this is it. They're over now. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all GameStops.
I mean, there's another one on 19. There's another one in the mall, and there's another one like right before you turn onto the road that leads to the airport. But none of those are next to a Five Guys.
3 malls that are within 20 minutes of your house.
Yep. No, there's so many. It's stupid how many GameStops there are. But
I don't want to get sidetracked, but whoever thought that was a good idea? Like, let's buy real estate that is smaller than a Subway sandwich shop with no eating lobby, and then cram 1 million games into it, and let's put these bad boys on every corner.
I don't know, man. It seems silly in retrospect. Don't know what they were smoking.
pre-internet, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the news. First up, we've got some PlayStation 2020 stats. PlayStation released for the next few months some stats for people who have a PS4 or PS5 at this point. You lucky son of a guns. Pretty simple stuff, just like number of games played, total hours played, the top 3 games, and then some silly statistics. Like one of mine was like the number of enemies that I sent running for their life in Ghost of Tsushima, which I think is really interesting that they tracked that at all and then bothered to like surface that. So it was kind of fun. But I had 11 games played in 2020, and I could not tell you for the life of me what those games were. Not all of them, obviously, but maybe I could probably get halfway there, but I couldn't tell you all 11. But I have number 1, Ghost of Tsushima at 43 hours, and I don't know if that includes Jason playing on
It has to.
It has to. I think so. I think you're right.
Because same thing with mine, but I'll talk about that in a second.
Mm-hmm. And then number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake at 33 hours, which again lends credence to the previous comment because I'm the only one who played that on that account, and I don't remember Ghost of Tsushima being 10 hours longer than that game. And then finally, Final Fantasy IX for 31 hours, but only because I left that sucker on like overnight or on for like 24 hours getting that trophy. And then I never went back and get the rest of the trophies. Such a slacker. I had like a total of, I don't know, 120, maybe 160 hours total. I don't remember exactly, but at some point earlier in the year, I definitely played that Kingdom Hearts DLC, which would have taken anywhere between like 2 and 5 hours. But yeah, I like stats like that, like the Nintendo thing. Jason, what did yours say?
Mine was kind of funny, honestly. It really was the spirit of the show. So I played 4 total games in 2020. The whole year I played 4 games on my PS4. The Last of Us Part 2, clocking in at 51 hours, but I know that was a lot of it was you because it says on the save file. Sorry, that was a burp. It says on the save file, how long I took to play. So that was the number 1 game. The number 2 game was the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo at 2 hours.
It doesn't take 2 hours, though. Like, it doesn't even take 1 hour.
I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. And so basically what this leads me to believe, if I'm doing my calculus correctly, I had a total of 60 hours of gameplay per the readout. I only played The Last of Us Part 2 for like 26 hours, and I think Karch were probably the other 25-ish, give or take. And then I had the 2 hours for Final Fantasy Remake demo. So that leaves me an additional 9 hours between the Final Fantasy VII demo and Ghost of Tsushima. So it's like basically all I played the whole year.
But it can't be Ghost because you played it on mine.
I was saying, you apparently of your 90 hours just or
60 hours.
60.
Your 60 hours, sorry, have just a bunch of hours, like 7 hours of games you played less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or you just sat on that, if it counts, just sitting on the home screen
on overnight one night.
Right. Oh, I did. That's what it was. I downloaded the discs of Red Dead Redemption 2. That's the other 9 hours.
The download game. It's a good game. All right. Next up,
no PlayStation 4 last year.
I was about to say, actually, you didn't post a little image, so I'm assuming that it was 0.
Yeah, last time I played PlayStation 4 was when I wrapped up God of War, and that was back in 2019.
Mm-hmm. Soon, though, you'll have a new number one game, and that'll be Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's happening.
It's all happening.
Next, we have Switch stats. Switch has officially outsold the 3DS at roughly 80 million units versus the 3DS's 76 million units. Next Nintendo console, might even be just the next best-selling console, would be the Game Boy Advance at 81. So, I mean, probably by the time we've spoken these words, it's technically already past it. I'm sure by the end of the month, they'll make the announcement that they have.
Yeah.
How high is this Switch going to go, boys? How high are we going?
I don't know. They're still selling out. I mean, because part of that announcement that Nintendo make about the numbers was talking about like sales up for some of their stuff is up like over 100% year on year.
Yeah.
So I mean, the pandemic wasn't great for a lot of things, but it certainly seems to have been good for Nintendo.
Yep.
Yeah, so for reference, the Wii's lifetime sales 101.63 million. So they are 22 million off beating that. And how long do you figure the Switch life cycle has left on it? Probably at least a year or two before their next console launches.
I see. Yeah, no, potentially that.
So, I mean, the question is in the next 2 years, do you think they'll sell 10 million a year? I think they will.
No, they're just right. And they release a Pro, and we count the Pro as Switch sales the same way we count the Switch Lite as Switch sales. I think
depends on the nature of the Pro.
So
this is already.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I think it'll edge out Wii, but it obviously is not going to catch up to PlayStation 2.
Nothing will. That's impossible now. That just doesn't happen anymore. But it will pass the Wii. It is to today's date, day and date, it's beating the Wii, like as far as sell through rate. Like it at the Wii's at its life point at the same time, it hadn't sold as many units, and so I can't see it not surpassing it. Maybe even at the end of this year, depending on just exactly what they have in store, and then again. Pro units and do Pro units count, etc.
And I also wanted to throw out there, for reference, the Xbox 360 approximately 84 million units sold, and for the PS3 87.4. So I think it'll be both of those.
Yep. Next, what's after? Wait, I'm sorry. What is PS4 is 120? Is that what it is?
That in the ballpark of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I could get there even. I don't think it'll touch DS numbers, which is just under PS2, and then nothing touches PS2. The DS couldn't at the cheap, at that price point, and then,
and iterations.
The iterations and how long it was on. I mean, the PS2 had a really long shelf life too, but it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen.
PS4 was 114.9.
Okay, so not quite to 120 yet. I think it'll get there too, though, before all is said and done. All right, next up we have Google Stadia shuts down internal studios. That is, internal development studios. So they couldn't even make a single game. Not one game made it out.
I say they released a game and then promptly unreleased it.
That was Amazon.
Oh, why am I thinking Amazon? Never mind.
Because they also shut down their internal studios last week.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of news. I think the Amazon one was covered by Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. That was a pretty good read. I skimmed it. I half read, half skimmed it, and basically it's just your typical. And if it's anything like Google, it's just this idea that this privilege of being like a sense of privilege, but like I'm going to step into this arena and I'm going to use my clout and my money and I'm just going to win. But it's just not something you can buy. You can't buy a good movie. You can't just say, I'm going to win the Oscars this year because I have the most money. I'm like, I mean, if it was that easy, we would have figured it out by then.
Yep.
So I'm happy.
The Yankees would win the World Series every year.
Well, they win a lot of them. Did you guys know that the Super Bowl was this weekend?
I did. The Buccaneers are in it.
That's crazy. And it's at Tampa.
I'm making brisket.
Yeah.
Send me some. A little envelope. Greasy.
I will.
Post-stamped envelope.
It's going to be delicious.
Are you guys sad about this? Do you shed a tear for the Google Stadia studios?
No.
I feel badly for the people impacted, and they did mention that they're going to try to find landing spots for them internal to Google. I'm sure the ones worth saving will be saved.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more in their core competency to focus on the infrastructure and the streaming service. So I think in terms of like what makes sense for Google, I'm hoping what this results in is Stadia being a better product.
Do you think that they were being held back somehow by their internal studios? Do you think Stadia not taking off has anything to do with the fact that they didn't have exclusives? Do you think they have a future if they don't have any non-third-party exclusives?
I think it depends on how they position themselves. Sorry, Sean, it sounded like you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, I mean, my issue with Google Stadia was, unless you're Jason or with your 1 gigabyte internet, the fact of the matter is just internet's not supportive for something like Google Stadia for the vast majority of people at this point. Like they're they're trying to be ahead of the curve, but U.S. infrastructure is just not there. And honestly, in another country, Stadia might have worked better, but it was never going to play out, I think, terribly well in the States.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not.
I don't know. I hate to disagree with you, but like Karch played xCloud at his house and he said it was decent.
I did on my phone, on and off
On
the
your phone.
Wi-Fi.
So
yeah.
I think for me, the problem with Stadia was just the approach that it was streaming only. So there was no way to play locally. Whereas with something like what Xbox is doing, you have the option to download it and play it locally. But if you don't have the hardware to do it, if you're like, like I was kind of stranded somewhere with no console, you can bring it up in your laptop or bring it up on your phone.
Some games are unavailable,
yeah,
except through streaming. And to be fair, the only game of any consequence that I played, as far as like performance-wise that I played, was Nier, and there were some hiccups.
Sure, you are sacrificing quality, and you're never going to be playing like Twitch shooters on it. But I mean, I won't say never, but not right now.
If you're not playing one of the most popular genres of video game, though, what are you doing? People are like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, I'm sorry, but Call of Duty is the most popular game. Like the most single popular franchise is Call of Duty every single year, except for maybe certain sports titles, if depending on the rotations, but those are yearly too. They almost always get beat by the Call of Duty. So like, how is the Twitch shooter not being a viable option on a streaming service not a huge red flag?
Well, even then, something like Nier, or even like an Assassin's Creed relies on timing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys talked about how Baldur's Gate 3 worked pretty well because it was turn-based, but in any of those games, that's real time. Do I wish the technology was there? Yeah, I just don't think U.S. infrastructure is there to support what Google was trying to do with Stadia. But we'll see. I mean, as that stuff improves and Stadia sticks around, we'll see how they play out.
Yeah.
Do you think they become a publisher?
No, not at this point.
Okay, interesting.
I think they've left. I think they've exited that side of the business for now.
So they're going to be some sort of weird Netflix for gaming.
Well,
but not even because it's not
how,
streaming.
Like, they're looking to sell the Stadia infrastructure out, like license it out to other companies to use.
That's right. They did.
So now they're like, hey, we have this product that we've already put together. Do you want like a quick way to become similar to an xCloud? That's so they've decided to package their technology as a product by making use of that technology solely for themselves, and I think their focus will shift away from doing it themselves.
Interesting.
And you know what's going to happen? All of a sudden, everybody's going to start pulling their games from services like Game Pass and PlayStation Now, and they're going to offer the Bethesda. Bethesda's owned by Microsoft, but you get my point, right? It's going to be the EA streaming service and the this and the that streaming service. Like, it's going to end up being what like Netflix was. And then all of a sudden you've got Hulu, you've got Disney Plus, you've got, you got all these others.
Well, and then also, because you talk about, you look at Netflix, losing Parks and Rec, losing The Office because Peacock put together their own streaming. Yeah.
Peacock's going to fall apart too, though.
Oh, probably. But it's that the joke always with streaming is I went from paying a cable company $90 a month to paying 5 streaming companies, $20 a month.
Mm-hmm. It's efficient. It's efficient. Moving on.
One more.
Okay. Moving on, because you have something you want to talk about, and that is NCAA is back.
Woo! NCAA football is back, boys. I don't know who cares about this, but I care about this. Why do I care about it? Because for some reason, Madden sucks, and this game was awesome, and I actually could play it, and I don't know why, because they're made by the same company. So essentially, what has happened here, everybody who's not in the know, which I think most people might be.
I'm not. Regale me.
Okay, so the last NCAA football game came out in 2014. It actually came out in 2013, but it was NCAA football 2014.
Why?
The reason they discontinued it is because a court ruled that EA could not sell games with a striking resemblance to athletes without paying them. There was one athlete in particular that case focused around, but essentially they said you can't make a guy, who looks like a 6'5" big white dude who's the quarterback for Florida, who goes to church every Sunday and call him Jim Bebo. You can't do it. You got to pay Tim Tebow. So they were like, do we have to? Meanwhile, I think the NCAA, a lot of the conferences within there, like the SEC and others, Big Ten, were like, I don't know if this is a really good thing to be associated with anymore. Maybe we don't want to license our, school logos and fight songs and stadiums to UEA. This is kind of becoming to be a bad look. You're going to open a can of worms. And so I think it was almost mutual that, EA didn't want to deal with it, NCAA didn't want to deal with it, and then they just stopped making the game.
So before you continue, have they created it? So what's changed? Why is it coming back now if this was a problem before?
So I read this article and they essentially said that as these conferences are now becoming a little more open to licensing their schools again, essentially, EA Sports is basically like, people have been clamoring for it. They put in a mode in Madden that kind of resembled college football, and I can't remember what it was called because I'm like, again, I don't like Madden, but I think that was kind of the test, the dipping the toe in the water, and they saw the fan response, and I think they just felt like it's time to bring it back. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. EA Sports is working with the collegiate licensing company to partner with the schools. I mean, there are over 100 teams in the FBS, and they use all of them. There are no plans to pay players at this time. That would require NCAA rule change beyond what's already set in motion, which is opening up for players to profit from endorsement opportunities, but I don't even think that's fully taken action yet. All that to say that the players are going to continue to get screwed, but at least we get an NCAA football back, and it's going to be called EA Sports College Football. I can't think of a worse name, but that's what it's going to be called.
That is a terrible name. Jason, another question. Why do you like such a inferior version of football?
That's a really good question. You mean in general or what?
Yeah, in general.
Okay. The reason I like college football is because it's sloppy, honestly. There are lots of reasons I like college football. So one is, in the NFL, you rarely see a running back get into the secondary and then just plow people over and take off for an 80-yard touchdown. Defenses are too disciplined in the NFL. They're fast. It's almost more like a game of chess. You can look at how the offense is lined up, look at how the defense is lined up, and make a pretty good prediction of how that is going to play out because they're professional athletes. Everybody was the best player at their college.
1%, yeah.
Exactly. Everybody does their job. And if everybody does their job, the plays play out pretty much like, it's rock, paper, scissors. And you have those breakout plays, obviously, but they're a lot more rare. Second is just the tradition, the rivalries, the storylines that I just feel like you don't get with professional. There's just like this thing where they're doing it. It's even if it's not true, and I know it's not true in a lot of cases, but they're doing it for the school. It's there's a pride thing.
Sure.
There's a pride component.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're getting your game back. 6-7 years is a really long time. Wait, do we know when it's slated for? Is it the end of this year?
There is no set release date as of now.
So probably next year at the very latest, I'd imagine. All right. Well, anything else before we go on?
No, I'm stoked. I have a lot of memories of playing this at Auburn, and that was the time at which Tim Tebow. Shut up. That was the time at which Tim Tebow was at Florida, and it was just so much fun to just play as Tim Tebow and just totally run over everybody and totally jank the game because you could, because the stats were just whack.
Right. Fun. In the sun.
I don't think I played a football video game since the Nintendo 64.
I had Madden 2001, and only Madden 2001, and it was one of the 3 games Dave ever played with me. Dave, my stepfather, and he crushed me every single time. And usually somewhere in the second half of the game, early third quarter, I'd give up, start fouling him on purpose, and he'd be like, "That's fine. I'll take the win. I'll take the extra yards." Like, he just couldn't. He just wanted to win so bad. I love Dave.
Dave has always been so good about the long view.
Oh yeah. Well, not even. Dave's a big old spite machine. Never, ever get on David O'Hara's bad side. Just don't do it. No one holds a grudge like him. The Embracer Group, formerly THQ Nordic AB, buys Borderlands developer Gearbox Studios and its publishing arm as well. The Embracer Group, based in Karlstad, Sweden, was previously known as THQ Nordic AB. The parent company boasts 57 internal game development studios. Oh, that's a lot. And more than 200 owned franchises, including Saints Row, Goat Simulator, Dead Island, Darksiders, Metro, MX vs. ATV, Kingdoms of Amalur, Time Splitters, Satisfactory, and Wreckfest. And now they have Borderlands and whatever other garbage that Gearbox spit out, like Godfall. Battleborn, which actually just the last day to play that was like 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah.
So, pour one out for Battleborn. You guys go hang out with the GameStops. So yeah, this is a pretty big deal. I mean, Gearbox is a weird company. Mr. Pitchford gets a lot of flack for being a complete and total wackadoo / probably not a nice dude. But people love Borderlands, and they don't put out a lot of other successful titles, but Borderlands always hits really hard. They were valued at somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was like 1.5 billion, we'll say. It was a lot. They were purchased for $363 million. It says 2K here. Is that a
from
typo?
From 2K.
Oh, from 2K. Yes, 2K was the one who owned them. My mistake. I forgot to say that part because it wasn't in my notes. I'm going to fire my note writer person. Anyway, yes, 2K stated they will still be partners with Gearbox. This was their statement. The merger does not change 2K's relationship with Gearbox, nor our role as the publisher of the Borderlands IP, or any other projects we are currently working on with the studio. We look forward to continuing our long-term partnership with this incredibly talented team and delivering many more exciting entertainment experiences to gaming fans around the world. And there was another quote from the article that I forgot to pull up, but basically stating that they can't wait to exploit. Oh, here it is. Pitchford later clarified that Gearbox has a relationship with Take-Two where we've agreed on certain rights for exploitation of the IP. Very strange wording. The IP
I thought so too.
Is a Gearbox IP. Like 2K, pretty slimy as far as like actual exploitation is concerned, especially in their games, microtransactions and the way they monetize things. So, and again, Pitchford known for not a great personality and maybe even some actual like shady money stuff as far as what's the word I'm looking for? Not extortion. It's when
embezzlement.
Embezzlement. Thank you. Exactly. Where he's embezzled some funds on his side or pocketed money that was meant as a bonus for the developers on a job well done. So I don't know if it was a Freudian slip or just, a very odd usage of the word exploitation because it's almost always a negative connotation. Anyway, does anybody care about this? Do you care, Sean? Do you care, Jason, about Gearbox being purchased?
The part that I cared more out of this was I didn't realize that this Embracer Group owned just that many game companies.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
We talk about EA and Activision Blizzard, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure they're really those two as being the biggest. If they're all that much bigger than this Embracer Group at this point. Especially given Metro with Metro Last Light had a really good game recently, but that kind of wrapped up the series. Saint Row is kind of on the back is on the back burner. I think the last Dead Island didn't do that well.
It did not.
So it's not like any of those games there jump out to me. I mean, Goat Simulator obviously was this crazy minor hit, but it's not like it's a big AAA title. So it's not like much of what they have jumps out to me as huge franchises, but just obviously now Borderlands is a very big franchise and changes that a little bit, but it just jumps at me at the sheer amount of the gaming industry that is underneath this group.
Yeah, we should do like a history of this company at some point as maybe like a spin-off video, but it is super interesting the way they kind of brought this back from the dead after THQ went under and used the name of a failed company to create this kind of monstrosity of a company that it's almost like nobody knows where they get their money or why they buy what they buy. I think at one point THQ Nordic was rumored to buy NFTP,
Yeah.
own a part of that. Yeah.
They didn't offer
Friends of
enough,
the-
though.
Yeah, they didn't. So we wanted to remain independent.
Cannot comment.
But yeah, I mean, it really is an interesting story if you go and look at all of it, the way that it came to be.
Do we know, is Embracer Group just gaming companies, or are they one of these diversified companies?
Good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. I want to say they're diversified, but I don't know.
Quick Google says developing and publishing PC, console, and mobile games for the global games market. It seems to be their bread and butter. Seems to be their main focus. Like, you know,
but it says it's a holding company.
Well, right. That just means that they hold all of these things. Like with THQ Nordic probably being like the large leading company on that is held by the Embracer Group. Just like ZeniMax isn't some like, it's not like a Vivendi, you know. ZeniMax simply existed to hold together all of the Bethesda stuff. They were created like simultaneously to benefit one another.
It's kind of like Alphabet and then all like Google and all the other Google properties. Alphabet exists really just as the umbrella company.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
All right. Now let's go ahead and wrap this up with Sean's Minished Caps.
All right. So we got a few items this week. Big thing to make us all feel old is Final Fantasy VII turns 24 this year.
Happy birthday to you.
How does that make you guys feel?
Old.
I don't have much of a relationship with this game prior to the remake, so it's I don't know. I mean, I remember Karch playing it on a PS1 in his room.
I did that
when we were in middle school. So I guess in that sense, it kind of makes me feel old. What about you, Sean? How does it make you feel? What's your background with this game?
I beat this game before Karch beat it. That's one of my few claims to fame.
Gonna get that Gold Kart.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit crazy to me. It's like I saw earlier in this year that the Lord, Fellowship of the Ring, the movie, turns 20 this year, and it's like, good Lord, yeah, that it does turn 20. It's like, oh my God, that's such a defining thing of my life now, is on the back end of my life, has been on the back end of my life for several years. So it's part of getting older, but if nothing else, hammers home the fact that it wasn't like it was like some remakes where it was maybe too soon. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake was definitely probably overdue, if nothing else.
True.
And moving on to remakes that are a little more current, Mass Effect Legendary Edition will be launching May 14th. So we'll be getting all three of the core Mass Effect games and their DLC, with the exception of Pinnacle Station from Mass Effect 1. BioWare came out and said that Pinnacle Station, which was made by a different developer actually that they worked with, when they asked for the source code in order to include it in the Legendary Edition, were told that the source code had been corrupted, and therefore Pinnacle Station will not be included. It'll be the only part of the whole Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 and their DLCs that's missing. They
say it's not worth it, so it's not really
much
lost.
Yeah, they said in order to bring it up and basically recreate it from scratch, it would take them like 6 months, and with the team they have, and so it's just not worth adding. And my recollection is Pinnacle Station wasn't like some of the other Mass Effect DLCs, especially Citadel. I think maybe it's just called the Citadel, that helped kind of smooth out the ending of 3 by kind of giving you closure with your crew. That's not Pinnacle Station. Pinnacle Station was very combat focused and not so story focused. So you're not missing like a key story of the Mass Effect trilogy without having it.
I'm stoked. I saw that trailer. I never hated the Mass Effect series, but I also just never played. I played all of 1, and then I never played all of 2, and I never touched 3.
I read an article a while back because I'd forgotten like 2. You go into this final fight at the end, and you got to like pick roles for each member of your crew to fulfill. Mm-hmm. And like if you haven't done certain things, and you pick like incorrect roles, like you can roll out of Mass Effect 2 with like your whole crew dead.
Yeah,
and then you go play Mass Effect 3, and it carries over, and so all those people are dead in Mass Effect 3, and you cannot get them.
Mm-hmm. I think you're really gonna like this, Jason. I really hope that you give it a shot and that you stick through 1, because 1's a little rough, and they're not changing much about it as far as the gameplay, but it's still fun. If just a little tedious at times.
Yeah, I mean, I could do what I did for the Uncharted trilogy and play my fill of 1 and then just go to 2.
Well, that's the problem, though, is that each game carries over some key stuff from the previous title, and I don't know how they're going to handle this if you just decide you want to jump into 2. I think there are.
That's what
options.
I was going to say. There used to be a site you could go on and like put in some key choices.
Visual comic, and you could pick your choices from 1
Right.
because Mass Effect 1 never launched for, was it PlayStation?
PlayStation 3, not for a really long time, if it ever did.
Yeah. And so when 2 came out, in order to allow people to carry stuff over, you could go and do this like visual novel that would allow you to basically make all the key choices that mattered in Mass Effect 1 that would carry over to 2.
It's crazy. All 3 of those games came out on the same like generation.
You think about how quickly those games came out. I mean, games in a big games like that in a series don't come out back to back like that, or not that they were back to back, but fairly compressed time frame compared to what you see.
Pretty much back to back. Like it would have had to have been.
I mean, compared to any other AAA game, you didn't get games as fast as you did Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. It's really, really talk about the probably the heyday of BioWare. I mean, that really is it.
Definitely.
So you're talking 2007 for the first one, 2010 for the second one, and 2012 for the third.
That's
a
5 years.
good clip. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're lucky to get a Legend of Zelda and a Mario in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
Sorry, go ahead, Sean.
So moving on, Apex Legends will finally be coming to the Switch on March 9th. I checked out Apex Legends a while back. Obviously due to my love of Respawn, I might give it another go on the Switch just for something to play. But I certainly always wish anything Respawn does the best. But the Battle Royale games never quite struck a chord with me. So
Fingers crossed for Titanfall.
Titanfall 3, I can only hope.
Yeah. Oh, I meant a remaster or port. Of
remaster of Titanfall 2 on the Switch. Ooh, that's dangerous. That's like if why I'm not allowed to buy Skyrim on the Switch. Total War Warhammer 3 will be coming out later this year. I remember when Warhammer or Total War Warhammer 2 came out. It came, kind of a niche market as Warhammer itself is. Although I think the Vermintide game has maybe changed that a little bit in the last couple of years. Be interested to see how this does, if it gets a bit of a bump due to the Vermintide games.
Is this an RTS?
It is sort of. So it's kind of a combo. So you have heroes that you can play as that represent like the great heroes of the Warhammer world and lore, but there's also like an RTS aspect to it. So you kind of swap between the two.
Interesting. That sounds really. I'll have to check this out. Let's
check
look it up.
Check out 2. It 2 did some interesting things to the lore of the Warhammer world. It was
which I know
interesting
nothing
to go back
of.
and kind of read on it.
There's a good subreddit for the 40K universe called, what is it, Grimdank? And even though I don't know anything about the 40K universe lore-wise, there's some funny memes. And a meme's good when it transcends your understanding of the subject material.
Honestly, I think 40K is more, Warhammer 40K is probably more popular than Warhammer Fantasy. I just think that's the weirdest like memory drag up of the smell of the Warhammer paint from back when I used to paint those models.
Ooh,
that's what that hobby store smelled like. It smelled like that paint.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it was chock full of that paint.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So moving on from that, Netflix announced that in 2022 they will be having a new Sonic the Hedgehog series called Sonic Prime, coming from the same developer that made the Castlevania series. And this probably jives with what we talked about last week, that the Sonic voice actor has noted that he's departed the role because presumably he found out he's not getting the Sonic role in Sonic Prime. Although I haven't heard who will be voicing Sonic.
Jim Carrey.
What's that?
Jim Carrey.
He's going to be the bad guy and the good guy.
Exactly.
Valve has been hit with another fine following a couple weeks ago where we talked about that they got the fine for geo-pricing in the EU. This time they got fined for $4 million for violating a controller patent on their Valve controllers. So probably still a drop in the bucket for Valve, but not a great couple of weeks for probably self-inflicted wounds on their part. And then I'll wrap up with a weird tidbit that I found out. An article came out, I think it was from Kotaku, noting that I guess at some point Nintendo was actually working on a Legend of Zelda cartoon series with Netflix. And then someone at Netflix let it leak that they were working on it, and evidently Nintendo got angry and just canceled the entire project.
They do not like leakers.
They do not. They take their security very serious.
Especially that early on, they had that string of rampant, loose-lipped uncles just telling all their nephews and nieces about what was going on, and they just can't have that happen anymore.
They fired all the uncles.
They did. Now it's just ants.
That's all I got from Minishcast for this week.
Thank you, Sean. And speaking of Sean, it's been 35 days since he last played Skyrim, so congratulations for making it a whole month and some change.
I do have something to admit on that one.
Oh no.
Okay.
Someone on the Skyrim Reddit, Skyrim Xbox Reddit, came and said that they had lost one of their characters. So Skyrim, obviously being a Bethesda game, has its own bugs, and sometimes NPCs will just like go missing. And you go back to where, like, if you like your followers, where they should go back when they're dismissed, and sometimes they're just not there, and you can run all over the map, and it turns out usually they're like stuck in a corner in some dungeon where they got stuck and they haven't been able to leave. And so I knew a mod that could help this guy, but I couldn't remember all the steps to use the mod, so I did boot it up, walk through the steps in order to get him solved, and then at least had the strength to quit and not play the game. But I did technically boot the game.
In fact, it's the opposite. You were tempted, and you persevered through. So I'm doubly proud of you, Sean.
He's playing Tantric Skyrim with himself. Just
don't do
tease
that, though. No, don't
get close.
Because it's still supposed to end.
Play it.
It's still supposed to end with him playing Skyrim.
It will.
Exactly. All right. Before we finish this pretty meaty news section, God of War Watch 2021 continues with the free enhanced PS5 version of God of War 2018 now available. Basically, this is the PS4 Pro version, which you could choose a graphical enhanced version or a performance enhanced version. Basically, do you want it looking super pretty with all the good lighting and textures and whatnot, or do you want it running at 60 frames per second all the time? And now you can put your hands together. And I will absolutely check this out. This is free, so presumably, as long as I have PS Plus, when I get my PS5, I can play with this enhanced version. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because I'm getting the digital, and I won't be able to play because I actually have this game on disc. Anyway, God of War Watch 2021, it is coming this year. Mark it on your calendars, December 31st, 11 p.m.
It's a law.
Wow. It's the law. It's the law. They're going to squeak it in the last second, but it's the law. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what we wish we were playing, because we here at Never Free to Play are never free to play, so sometimes we just got to look through that glass window instead of picking up a controller. So, Jason, what do you wish you were playing?
So right now, I am probably about 5 hours into God of War, maybe a little less. And I am really enjoying it, but I think what would be a nice little bite-sized thing to keep me going is a nice little VR indie game that's maybe, just a couple hours sort of experience, or something you could jump into, play a couple rounds of, and not have to think about too much, instead of this huge immersive world where you have to keep your chops up to even play the game and remember what you're doing and what goal are you trying to do in your RPG thing, and what equipment combinations are used with what skills and blah blah blah. So something bite-sized. Maybe like a little God simulator would be cool.
Or maybe some sort of God of War simulator.
I'm gonna tell you this before Karch tells you this. Just stay focused and eat your vegetables and finish God of War.
I know.
2 weeks to 5 hours. I already need a break. Oh, so much to keep track of.
That sounds exactly like me.
It does. I'm going to take it away from you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you want it like at 3070.
Put it on the shelf with the Arkham games.
I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of thought about pausing and just being like, you know what? I'm going to play the PS5 enhanced version.
I hate you.
So there. That's what you've done.
I didn't do nothing. All right, time to piss you off. I wish I was playing something Pokemon related. And I can't remember why. But something sparked my Pokemon love. What was it?
Probably all the Pokemon music from last week's podcast.
Maybe a little bit of that might have sparked it, started it. And then I watched a video by ProZD on YouTube where he ranks, I think, the Gen 2 Pokemon. I was like, I love Gen 2. And there are a lot of rumors about the Diamond and Pearl remakes potentially coming this year. And that's Gen 4, which is those are some of my favorites of the entire series, and I would very much like to play those remakes. I also want to play some kind of indie title. I haven't played an indie game in a while, probably since Hades. And that Cyber Shadow game looked pretty cool. And we were talking about The Messenger and Undertale a lot last week, and Hollow Knight, which, while it is technically an indie game, it's super, super polished, so it stands apart. But yeah, I gotta play something by the little guy after Nier. I think I will, but we'll see. And then I miss Stardew Valley. It's been a while, but there is that update coming soon, and I'm definitely gonna try to play that with Juliet when the split screen's there. So
just make sure you stick to your plan. You gave us a whole calendar, and I don't want to see you making stuff up in February.
I'm kind of ahead. I'm ahead in some things and behind in others, or rather, I'm on schedule. I don't think I'm behind in anything. We'll see though. I got it.
Okay, I trust you.
I don't have a Skyrim, I don't have something just constantly looming, just pull me away. And I like video games that last more than 2 hours, so I don't have to worry about that either. I have
mental
none
fortitude.
of your weaknesses.
I have them all.
You do. Sean, what do you wish you were playing?
After last week, I wish I was playing The Messenger.
Nice.
We wrapped up the podcast, and I think that Friday I downloaded it, and the weekend got away from me, and this week has gotten away from me, and it's sitting there on my Xbox, downloaded from Game Pass, ready for him to play, and I just haven't had the time to go and play it yet.
That's a Switch game, if I'm being honest.
I mean,
yeah, but
Sean doesn't care.
It's
But
free on Game Pass.
It's also free on the Switch. Just saying.
Yeah, but so I can get it off use, but I know for a fact that when I was playing Hades and even Celeste, I know when I was playing Celeste that Karch was not playing Celeste, but it would boot me off it and say that he was every so often, which got frustrating because then it wouldn't let me get back in for an hour or two.
I do have a solution to that. So the way Nintendo game sharing works, and this is just a quick aside.
Yeah, no, I mean, Karch already told me this, where the moment you boot it up, you got to shift it over to airplane mode.
Yep, exactly. And then
that
gives you a 3
I got to
hour...
play in handheld, which isn't always what I want to do.
No,
that's how I played it exclusively. So
we can talk about it offline, because I don't think you have to play it in handheld, because I play Matt's copy of Mario Kart all the time on the TV.
All right.
Either way, if he wants to play on an Xbox, more power to him.
Power to the players.
It's honestly easier because I got the Xbox set up in the office at this point, which means if Katie wants the TV, this is easier for me to play in, except for during the day, because now that she's doing school, the office is also doing double duty as the classroom. But
you can crank that music up though if she's not in there. Just blast it.
And then the other thing is work has been frustrating, and I want to go play Skyrim, but I'm going to try not to go play Skyrim.
Don't play Skyrim. Fusro, died out of your mind.
I want to play Skyrim.
You can play Skyrim if you want. You've earned it.
There's a mod that I had that the mod author came out and gave their roadmap for the next 3 updates, and I'm like, no, I gotta hold out until these updates come out. Then I'll play. So I'll have those updates when I play.
How are people still making mods for this game, man?
Because they haven't made Elder Scrolls 6 yet.
I blame Todd Howard. If they hadn't kept re-releasing this game, it wouldn't be in the forefront of as many people's minds, and so those modders wouldn't have anyone to mod for, et cetera, et cetera. It's just disgusting what he did.
He's a genius.
He is a genius. That's why Microsoft bought him. It's like, hey, can you sell our stuff over and over again, please? Yes. We love money. All right, that was short and sweet. We have our wishes are pretty minimal, I think, this week. So what you been playing for real, Jason?
Okay, take a time code of this, because you're going to need this time code.
Okay.
Hour and 32 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That felt good.
Swears a lot.
You can.
I love Mario Kart. I think it's good. I think you're just bad.
No, I'm not just bad, dude. The AI is so cheap.
Does it make you feel worse if I tell you that I can consistently place in first place all 4 races on 150cc?
A little bit. What's your setup? What person do you use?
Shy Guy on the moped.
I use Shy Guy on the bike. What color?
Okay.
Orange, I bet.
Look
Right?
at
That's
you.
the best.
Look at you. Hold on. I got a shy guy on the bike or moped.
Yeah.
So I don't know what my problem is. I'm trying so hard, and I looked up a couple different combinations of what's the best character. At least one person said to do something with Bowser that kind of maxes out top speed and has decent acceleration and has decent traction. So that's what I've been trying to do, and it's really not working for me because when Bowser takes a tumble, he doesn't have enough acceleration to overcome that if it's on the third lap.
So Shy Guy with the moped, if I recall, he's not super you're going to have some top speed problems, but you'll get up to his full speed super fast. So your ability to recover from a hit is really is top notch.
Are you drifting?
Of course I'm drifting.
All right.
Are you drafting?
I'm drifting. I'm drafting. I am jumping out the top of the ramps, out the top of the bumps, taking tight corners.
Are you holding on to shells to protect you?
Yes, of course. Okay. It's just that here's the type of thing that happens to me. I will be 50 yards from the finish line on the third lap. I will get a shell, a blue shell. Boom, and I have nothing. I can do nothing. I don't have a mushroom. I can't boost out of the circle. I don't have a sound box. I can't make it go away. It's going to hit me. It hits me. I recover. I still am going to be okay. And then some dude comes along with a red shell, drafts behind me, pulls ahead of me. I'll end up in 5th place. I mean, it is insane the amount of hoops it seems like they go through. I'm going to have to record some of these races for you guys to see the crazy stuff that happens.
I want to see it because I placed. And now, granted, I wasn't doing the mirror, but I did the flower cup. I did the flower cup in the star cup on 150cc. And I'm not saying I've never raced these tracks before, but it's been so long. It's like I did it for the first time, and I got the cup. I mean, 1-star it, on both times. So it's like
those are. I did those both on the first try as well. Okay. I'm just stuck on some of the later levels.
The crossing cup did take me in 4 to 5 tries, and every time I lost, it was exactly like you described. If you do not have that lead where you can recover, even though you got hit by a blue shell and then maybe something else and you hit a stray banana or whatever, it's there's really just nothing you can do about it.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I can be in first place for 95% of the race and still lose.
Yeah, sometimes it's it's a game of how long can I stay in second without losing sight of the first person so they can take that shell, because there's usually only one blue shell per race. Yep. There's I don't know if there's ever been more than one in the few races I've been doing. So that could be your strategy.
Before. I know that.
I'm really struggling with some of these later levels. So anyway, that's really all I have to say about it. Mario Kart 8, they're cheating. They're cheating. Oh, here's the other thing I was going to say. A lot of times I will throw a shell at them, and I don't know if it's that I have it docked, and so there's some switch limitation that prevents the animation from occurring, but I will be 10 feet behind them and throw a shell at them, red shell, right at them, and then it just hits their back and explodes, but they don't fall. And I'm thinking what's happening is they have a banana peel or a shell, and they're just putting it out so quick that I can't see it. But it sure looks a lot like they're just not taking shells when they're either drifting or when I hit them right in the back. And then the other thing is the red shell. Every single time I go off a ramp and I'm gliding, a red shell will follow me if one is thrown.
That hurts. Yeah.
And hits me in midair. When I do that to them, it never hits them.
No, it doesn't.
It will either fly off the map or it will hit them and it won't do anything. And then they get a 10-second grace period after they land. So none of my offensive attacks affect them after they've landed off of gliding. So that's another thing that's really frustrating where I'm I know I hit them. I know it.
Just got to get good, man. Just got to get good.
Shut up. I'm so mad at this game.
All right, the race is on. Who's going to get the gold cart first? Is it going to be Karch or Jason?
The other game I've been playing obviously is God of War. Not much to add beyond what I said last week.
Oh, not much to add? Go ahead. Tell us how little you have to add to this perfect game.
I will. I am trying to pay attention to the gear and skills so I don't get stuck at the end. One little thing that has been tripping me up that I can't get over, because I'm not a Soulsborne type of guy, and having melee attacks on the L and R buttons, that should be illegal.
No,
should be banned.
You should be banned from this podcast.
Tell me why, Karch. Tell me what the. Let me just pitch my idea, and then you tell me why it's so wrong.
Go ahead.
For years and years in the console game world, melee attacks and main attacks were done by your thumb on the face buttons of the controller, which makes the most sense because it's the most comfortable, the easiest. Your fingers are already right there naturally. To do this weird little thing with your pointer and middle finger, it feels unnatural, and you get fatigued just sitting there tapping those buttons all like the thumb. I could go all day. These trigger fingers, they're not made for it. So I'm thinking X jab, and then triangle could be your heavy, circles roll, and square is still fire with Atreus. And then you'd still do the same thing. L2 to aim the axe, R2 to throw it. But instead of pressing triangle to get the axe back, just press the throw button again. Press R2 and get it back. Like, it makes no sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes so much sense. It feels so good. There's something about R1 that is, in my opinion, Kingdom Hearts is a smash X to win kind of game. It is a smash that X button to do your basic attack. There's no heavy attack. It's just your basic attack in the entire game. But in God of War, you're hacking. You're making this very deliberate hacking motion. And with all the other, because it's been a while since I played, so I can't really speak super well to it. But the way you aim and shoot the axe with, L1 or L2 and R1,
which I said was fine.
Yeah. But then why would you wouldn't want to move that to different buttons when you're doing the hack and slash versus when you're shooting off the axe? I don't know. It feels so good, and then having them on different buttons feels right too, because you need the attack button to be on, or you need the retrieve button to be on something else, because you can punch while you're.
Well, that's the thing, because punch would be X in my world, so you wouldn't need that button to punch while your axe was lodged into a tree or whatever.
Additionally, if we're going old school, light attacks are always on square.
Okay, that's fine. And then Atreus could be triangle. Sean, can you weigh in here? Break the tie.
So clearly, I am more of I've played more first-person shooters than either of you, and I can tell you that the reason I desperately wanted an Elite when it came out is I don't want to use the face buttons anymore, because I don't want to take my thumb off of my second thumbstick. That's
a really good point, Sean.
So I'm all for having more stuff going on to the shoulders. I think probably, but also Jason, I agree with you. I think what little of Assassin's Creed Origins I played, which has a similar thing where the attacks are on the shoulders, did throw me, because for whatever reason in my mind I was like, this should combat like a Legend of Zelda, and a Legend of Zelda obviously has your attacks going off your face buttons.
And you played God of War too, so tell me how you felt about when you played that.
I was fine with it. I had no issues with it. I think by that point, for whatever reason, I had adjusted.
I'd say Sean's most correct here. That Karch, you're wrong and I'm wrong. It needs to be the Elite controller with the back pedals. I think that actually makes the most sense.
I mean, if your index fingers are getting tired, your middle and ring finger are going to get exhausted, because they're definitely not built up to that load.
But the action, the amount of space you have to cover to depress the R buttons is a lot more than the action on the Elite controller. The Elite controller is really light taps.
You're not playing a Mario Party mini game. You don't need milliliter or picometer difference. It doesn't matter.
It matters in my fatigueness of my fingers.
Train your fingers up, boy. Train your fingers up.
I guess so. I
think this is demonstrated with the fact that you grew up with consoles that didn't have shoulder buttons or had minimal shoulder buttons, and you're stuck in the past, Jason.
He is.
I suppose.
I'll agree with you. if we compare, let's say, God of War and Breath of the Wild's controller setup for those third-person games, yeah, I prefer my stuff to be on the face buttons. But I thought God of War controlled great. I had no issues with it.
Yeah, it's fine. Just in those big battles, sometimes
coming from
my
the
fingers.
FPS world, especially Titanfall, where because of the speed, I really don't want to move my finger off of my thumb off the right joystick. I've become more accustomed to it.
When you put it like that, yeah, I mean, I do kind of get it.
What I will give you is there is a lot going on. You know, there's shield, there's punch, there's axe, there's throw axe, there's special moves, there's 2 different kinds of special moves, there's dodging.
There's 2 kinds of throwing the axe.
Exactly. There is a lot to do, and it's all very subtle, and it takes a while to get used to. And I think maybe that might be more than anything, and then you're just attributing it to like this somewhat unconventional, at least to your yeah.
I think you're right, is that like it always takes me an hour of playing the game to remember how to play it. And so for the first hour, I'm just like tapping R1 because that's all I could do, tapping R1 and dodging because I forgot how to do everything else. And slowly it comes to me when I accidentally do it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember I do have that attack.
Just don't fight the Valkyries. You'll be fine.
Don't do what?
Don't fight the Valkyries. You'll be fine.
I got killed.
But don't you have to fight the Valkyries?
No.
At least one?
No, they were like DLC
optional.
Added after.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't DLC.
It's
just extra stuff you don't have to do.
Sure. And then just to wrap up God of War real quick, locking on to enemies I think would be kind of nice. I don't see what the downside to that would be. Do you even use R3 for anything? I don't think you do. So like
you use it in conjunction with L3 to do your rage, but
right. So I don't see how locking on would detract, especially like just having a thing where you click in R3.
Get
and then
better at video games.
What?
Get better at video games.
Oh yeah, it's so cool when the camera's going crazy and you don't know where the enemy is. That's awesome.
Why is the camera going crazy?
I don't know, Karch, because it's not locked on to anything. Also, I just want to say that the story is both mesmerizing and mundane, and I kind of love it. Like,
do you say mundane in a negative way?
No,
okay.
Not in a pejorative sense at all.
Okay.
Just like at the end of the day, if you break this down to its base, you're a father and a son trying to go spread your wife's ashes in the place she asked you to do it, which is far away, and it's a journey. And it's a lot of it is just you guys walking and talking and learning each other, and Kratos learning how to be a father to Atreus, which is like, it's so crazy to me because when I played this game the first time, I think Luke was not even 1, and now like it hits me so much harder, those moments. I do have some questions about the world that I'm hoping get answered. Like, I don't know why everything's trying to kill me. At one point, they alluded to some sort of like ward being over the forest where we lived that was bypassed and broken into. But as these demon people keep attacking us, Atreus makes it seem like this was everyday life. Like, oh yeah, more of these guys, kill them. And then Kratos does. So it tells me that the ward never warded off those demon dudes. It's just the weird little god.
The ward was minimal. It was a very small area around their homestead specifically. And then when you cut down, because I'm saying these things because it's never at least explicitly said. It's not like some sort of spoiler reveal. The tree you cut down at the very beginning is part of it. Ward. It's got it's got that gold hand on it. That the mom is the one who was in charge of that ward. And when you do that, I don't know if you knowingly do it or you're just cutting a tree down to use for like the pyre or whatever.
She had the wife had dictated that she wanted that tree cut down and used for her funeral pyre.
Okay, so it was basically her plan for the ward to come down, and so like the demon, the Draugr exist outside of that. And I mean, as far as why they're killing you, I guess because they're just evil creatures.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm trying to walk to point A to point B, and every 5 steps I encounter just these swarms of witches and demons and Draugrs and heavy Draugrs, and I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, it makes for a really fun game, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So
there is this idea that something is wrong. You don't know what, and I don't know if they ever really get to the bottom of it. I think there might be more coming in the next game, but like something's going on, and I mean, Ragnarok is approaching. And that's evident by the fact that the next game is called God of War Ragnarok. But it's a little gamey. Like, it is just kind of a video game reason for the most part.
And that's fine. That's fine. But it does lean heavily on narrative, so those two things kind of
for sure
clash a little bit to me. But it's whatever. I'm really enjoying it. Last thing I'll say, I have a PS4 Pro. I've been suspending and resuming. The first time I played it, I didn't have any issues with frame skips. Mm-hmm. It triggered an update for God of War for some reason, and I didn't want to update, so I said launch with skipping the update. And now I'm getting all these frame drops, and it's really annoying. I think I'm going to have to make that update happen. But neither here nor there. I don't know why the performance is bad. It wasn't this bad in 2018. It's been bad.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
Yep, yeah. Weird. Okay, I'm done. Karch.
All right. I've been playing more Nier. Not a lot I can say about it that won't be super story spoiler, and I would hate for even Josh to get spoiled. So
even the lowly Josh.
Even the lowly peasant. Who probably won't even play Nier. No, it's good game.
Love you, Josh.
I have to imagine, Sean, I talked about it with you earlier. Am I almost done? I'm pretty close, right?
Yeah, you're pretty close.
That's what I thought.
Not much left.
I'll probably knock it out this weekend then. I've got the kiddo at my mother-in-law's, so I'll have a little bit extra time where I might not normally have some, and I'll probably try to finish it off on Saturday.
Nice.
But it's very good.
Sadly, I won't be on next week, but I guess the week after I look forward to talking about it.
We'll do a separate spoiler cast.
Awesome.
And we'll put that up on, I'll find some time in their week, you find some time in the week, and we'll talk about it for an hour or so.
Yeah.
And get into the nitty gritty.
I'll listen to that because I'm never playing that game.
No, it'll be great for you to just listen to. I talked about the Mario Kart 8. I've been playing. Most of it was with my family, but yesterday and today I started playing a little bit of the single player to try to get the cups on those 150 cc's, and I already had the mushroom, and then I got the crossing cup, the star cup, and the fire cup. And so I have
you got the easy ones.
I got the easy ones apparently. So I'll get just plug away at that maybe if I feel like it.
Talk to me when you get the special cup.
I'll get it first. The next one I won't rest until that's the one I've gotten. It's funny. I am going in blind and doing pretty well. If I don't win that first try, I usually do it within the third or fourth one. But that's only because I can learn that track pretty well after at least 2 laps. However, turns out Wario Mountain, there are no laps. You're going down a mountain, which is a really cool level.
It's
but also,
so cool.
It was all it was thrilling because I ended up coming in first. I think might have been second. Either way, I did really well. And it was just super tense because I had no idea what to expect around literally every corner because there was no repetition. And I only realized that about just a little bit after
it gives you lap indicators.
Right. After the first lap, and I realized that I wasn't in the same place anymore. I was like, wait, what's going on? But
there's at least one F-Zero level that you're with play that's the same way, where it's just one continuous track, and it's a pretty fun one.
I love those so much.
I've never played an F-Zero game. People say they're great, and yet they don't make any more of them. So which one is it? Show your moves. The other game that I've been playing a lot of, that I actually played before last week, and I just totally blanked on writing anything about, so I forgot to mention it, was Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. No, I haven't done the video for the first one yet, but I didn't have a handheld game to play at the time, so I wanted to go ahead and... All right, Jason interrupted me with his hilarious Kingdom Hearts joke, but I've been playing Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which is a GBA game. I am playing the GBA version. I am playing it on a PSP. I didn't feel like playing the console because I don't want to have to play 2 console games at once. It's too much for me. My little brain can't take it. And I turned into Jason, and I just stopped playing everything because I've been playing Nier on my PS4 right now. Plus, I know this game. At least I know the GBA version, and I wanted to kind of get through it quick. Forgot how long it is. I'm at the last level right now, and I'm 10 hours in. And there is another section where you kind of play through the whole game again as a different character in a very different way that makes it a lot quicker. But basically, let's set the mood, the story a bit. So this game takes place immediately after the first Kingdom Hearts game. It is a direct sequel, which would spawn many direct sequels that would appear only on handhelds And from the surface, they would feel like quote-unquote spin-offs, when in actuality, they were just full-fledged Kingdom Hearts games on weaker hardware. They would have story lead-ins that would be very important in the next game. The level of that importance would vary from, title to title. In this one, it plays a lot like, if you remember watching like Dragon Ball Z back in the day, you had your main story with Goku and stuff, and then you would have these little movies or like kind of like sub-series, like where you would follow a different character for a while. And at the end of the day, it felt like a complete waste of time. It's basically just filler. These games could be filler, but instead, they're not. They introduce an entire new cast of bad guys called, they're simply referred to as the Organization, and they're just tall, black coat wearing, spiky haired anime boys and girls. And they talk all cool and enigmatic, and they clearly have some giant plan for Sora. And in this game, you take care of all of them. Like you beat all of the people, but it alludes to like a boss and more members. And then that's what you end up getting in Kingdom Hearts 2. So instead of just this being like this throwaway group, you actually have the new bad guys that are, that will show up in Kingdom Hearts 2. So you're rewarded for playing this game. And when you see these characters and these new areas that actually appear in Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, when they show up in Kingdom Hearts 2.
So who is responsible for, who is like the continuity keeper for the Kingdom Hearts universe? Is this all the same developer and they just decided to do it on these different platforms, or did they farm these games out? And do you think they had this entire storyline planned ahead of time? How do you think that worked?
Tetsuya Nomura is the brain man behind the Kingdom Hearts series. He's very hands-on with every single game. I don't know if it's always the same exact team, but it is always him. He absolutely does not plan this out ahead of time. Maybe, if we're lucky, he's thinking of the next game while he's, designing the current one. That's if we're lucky, and he doesn't change his mind. He's done a lot of stuff to try to make things fit in, kind of like, not a backronym, but like an explanation, a retroactive explanation. That's what I was looking for. And he's done prequels at this point that then kind of like, much like the Star Wars prequels, just kind of make explanations for things that didn't need explanations. Like at the very end of Kingdom Hearts 1, Mickey shows up and he doesn't have a shirt on, but he's mostly in silhouette. Except Mickey often doesn't have a shirt on, so it's not that big a deal. Except later when you see him, he does. And that sparked this kind of weird, like burning question in the fan base, like, where does shirt go? And so many, many, many years later, they show the scene where he loses her shirt. It's like, why did you do that? So these are the kinds of things we're dealing with here. As far as how far did he think ahead? Nothing. He wasn't thinking.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
That is like George Lucasism in a nutshell. Of like, let me answer questions that really had no reason or need to be answered.
Exact. Granted, that is probably like the most egregious of examples. Like there are far more more elegant ways that he explains certain things or fits, previously unthought things into the narrative so that it does make sense. So it's just all over the place. But yeah, that's to answer your question. Basically, so game ends. You've defeated Ansem, who's the bad guy into the first game. All the worlds are being restored, except for some reason, Sora, Donald, and Goofy do not go back to their home planet. They are just kind of stuck in this weird place. They don't know where they are. They come across this Castle Oblivion. It's cool. It's geometric, etc. They go in. It's all white. It's just whiteness. And you get all this spiel about how this castle will make you forget things, except to forget is to remember. And you're going to go through levels, and each level is a piece of your memory from the first game. So you're just going to run through all the same Disney worlds as before. And that also starts a new tradition where they rehash a lot of content in these handheld games. So in some of the later ones, it gets a little bit more creative, but it is literally almost beat for beat, but even more truncated because it's a Game Boy game. Like you go to Aladdin and you save the genie and you save Jasmine, and it's just kind of boring.
Moving on.
Exactly. Moving on.
Are these voice acted, or is it all just text based since it's a Game Boy Advance game?
In the Game Boy Advance, it's all text based. The remaster on the PS2, which was then sent to PS4, does have full voice acting.
Okay.
Yeah. So each level, so basically, as far as the story is concerned, it's actually It's very, very simple. There's not a lot of dialogue. Every like main set piece moves on pretty quick. But there is this constant through line of, so Sora's going up the stairs, and every level he forgets a little bit of what he, of his life and his journey so far, and he starts to remember things. So he's not actually remembering real things. There's this little girl named Ncaa that the organization has captured essentially, and she can control Sora's memories, which you don't learn till the very end. But she basically starts inserting herself into his brain. And little by little, he starts to forget who his friends are, the places he's been, and he can only remember Ncaa. And it brings into question, like, what is memory and how does it relate to existence and heart and who you are? Because he runs into his best friend Riku, except Riku's not actually Riku. He's a body double that was created by this organization. And he was force-fed those same fake memories. And I'm not, this sounds confusing because I'm not getting into...
This sounds like a fever dream, like a dream you would have in real life.
It is.
Of I was in a house and my friends were there, except I didn't know any of my friends.
And it makes perfect sense, honestly. It makes perfect sense when you're playing. And again, the main theme being like what are your memories? Or like what is, and how does it relate to like hearts and your soul and how you feel, and how does that like reach across the what?
It kicks into who you are, if I recall.
Exactly.
From watching Katie play it.
Exactly, yeah. And then so it lifts a lot of weight. This is peak GBA. It looks good, it plays good for a GBA game. It's got a great story for a GBA game. And so I'm enjoying it. It's a little, what's the word? It's old. And that's all there is to it. As far as combat goes, everything is cards in this castle. All your powers are taken away because all your memories of them are like removed or something dumb like that. But then they put them all in the form of a card, and they give you it's the stupidest explanation. But basically,
classic Metroid syndrome.
Exactly, classic Metroid syndrome. And Kingdom Hearts is worse about it, I swear, because every single they have to come up with a reason why Sora loses his powers every single time. It's either because it's a completely different Sora, or it's because he got his head hit way too hard, or his memory's stolen. Oh, that's the other thing. Like, what is even real in this castle? Like, you go into a room, and all of a sudden you're in Agrabah, or you're in the Little Mermaid place, and it's like. And Sora's talking to people. Are these people here? Are they going to remember any of this? Like, and it's like, again, it goes back to like, what is reality outside of like, our perception, etc. Anyway.
I like how you just turned this Kingdom Hearts 2D game into like the Matrix philosophically.
Kind of, yeah. So we've got cards. The cards go in a deck. The cards represent your attacks. So like you have a Keyblade and it has a number on it. And when you're in combat, so you run into an enemy and it goes into a battle arena, like a classic turn-based game, except it's action. You're moving around the character actively. You are pressing the attack button using that card resource. And so then you attack the enemy, for instance. You can do like a 3-hit combo when you use 3 cards in a row. The enemies attack with cards too. And those cards have a number on it. If I throw out an attack that has a 9 on it, and they throw an 8, their attack gets blocked, or prevented rather, and I just keep going with mine. However, if they had a higher number than I did, they will interrupt me and stun me for like half a second, basically, and attack me. So it's basically just this constant like give and take and shuffling through your deck on the fly to try to either break them while they're attacking to stun them and then do damage, or make sure that while you're attacking, all the cards you're using are a reasonably high enough level or a high enough number value to not be broken by them. And that's the crux of the game. That's almost the entire game, is just making sure that that doesn't happen to you as often as you do it to them. The bosses obviously have way more tricks up their sleeves, but then it also combines with the fact that, again, you can jump and dodge and move and roll. The other main component is that you can take 3 cards at a time and basically combine them into what is called a sleight. And if you use a certain kind of card or a certain value of card and add it all up, he might do a special move. And that's where you can really cheese this game, because there's basically one move where you just dash across the screen over and over and over again, and then all 3 of those cards combined into, let's say, like a value of like 23. And the enemies only use single-digit cards. They're never going to break that. So while you're just dashing around beating the crap out of them, they can't do anything. And that's how I've gotten through like 90% of these battles, because I am not fighting in the traditional way, because it's not fun. It's not fun to fight like that.
Katie playing this game, I think I've commented a while back that she started Kingdom Hearts 3 and then wanted to go back and play all the Kingdom Hearts, which is the crux of the reason why I have a PS4. And
Had she never played
Kingdom
the
Hearts
others?
1 again. What's that?
Had she never played the others?
She had played 1 and 2. She had never played any of the
Gotcha.
handheld ones.
Okay, gotcha.
So she went to go play this, and she does not like the card battle. So I'll have to look up that cheese for her.
It's
and
called
give her that option so she can power through this game and keep moving on with the series.
I don't know if it translates to the 3D version, the one that she'd be playing, but the move is called Sonic Blade. And I've pretty much stacked my deck with, 3 card sets of, that basically I'll be able to use those and always activate Sonic Blade. It doesn't always work. Like if the enemy's not on the ground, you won't hit them. And then you have to come up with a different strategy. So I don't know what she might be bumping up against, but if you Google it, there's probably a cheesy thing to do. The cards the way you obtain cards is incredibly obtuse and random. Like there isn't just you aren't just given cards for the most part. You get a beginner deck, but everything else is found on enemy drops, and then so every area there's a map, and there's these tiny little rooms, and each room's divided by a door, and you have these room cards. And you use a card on a door, and that determines the kinds of enemies, how strong or weak they are, whether or not maybe there's a chest in that room. It's kind of fun because you basically get to design it yourself, as long as you have the appropriate kind of card. So there's battle cards and room cards. And the only way you get more battle cards is the way you set up those room cards. And so it's just, there's a lot of RNG. There's just a lot of randomness, and that can be really unfun if you're not getting good rolls, basically, and you're just getting stuck with garbage cards trying to fight your way through. I remember this game was just hard as nails when I was a kid. I didn't beat it for a long time. I was an adult when I finally finished it the very first time. But
why would you subject yourself to this?
Because I'm playing through all the Kingdom Hearts games.
Okay. Yeah, and apparently I'm watching some gameplay videos. So occasionally Donald Duck will come out and just whack people.
Yeah, so because of the GBA limitations, presumably anyway, you're always just battling alone as Sora. Your friends are turned into cards, and they'll appear in battle. They'll bounce. The card itself will appear and just start bouncing around the arena, and if you pick it up, then you can use the Donald card or the Goofy card or the insert Disney character for that world card. And if you use more of them at once, they'll do a better move. Just like I was mentioning with the Keyblade combos. But it's the beginning of something special in the Kingdom Hearts series that a lot of people love and a lot of people hate with these little handheld, quote-unquote, spin-offs. This is the only one I think you can skip. You don't have to play this one to really understand what's going on in Kingdom Hearts 2. That's not true anymore when you get to the other ones that come after this, but we'll talk about that when we get there. Once you're finished with this, Sora will have his little story wrap up, and then you're going to take over Riku, his best friend from the first one, who was also his enemy in the first one. He's at the basement, and he's hanging out with Mickey and this cool guy named Diz. That's all I remember right now, and I haven't got there yet, so I'll talk about that next week. And that's all for me. Sean, what have you been playing?
Nice. So I got 2 games this week. I finally managed to sit down with the wife, and we played a little bit of Age of Calamity. And so we just one evening, we just ran through a handful of levels after dinner one night, just chatting and beating the crap out of hordes of Bokoblins and Lizphos and what have you. So that was just a nice little evening for us. And then I played some more Squadrons over the weekend. I've been playing just the fleet battles versus AI mode, just kind of building my skill at the game. I'm to the point now where I a few times now I've been able to beat that entire mode without the Empire ever getting the upper hand.
Nice.
My younger brother and I played a little bit last night. We played like 3 rounds with humans. So I primarily play X-Wing, and then I'll jump over to the Y-Wing every so often if I want to make if I'm making runs on capital ships. He hadn't played a ton. He's played a little bit of the campaign. Mm-hmm. He settled in on the B-Wing, which got added to the game a little while ago, along with the TIE Defender as kind of a free expansion.
Cool.
He really likes the B-Wing, and we played a round where at the very end we were making a run on the Star Destroyer. He loaded up the B-Wing with all kinds of weaponry, and I went in and basically settled in as his protection and just fended off the fighters from him, and he destroyed a Star Destroyer. It was awesome.
Very cool.
I think I think he like wiped out like half the Star Destroyer in that round, and I had something like 14 kills against enemy pilots. Like I had my Wedge Antilles moment. It was awesome.
Is there a P-Wing?
There is not a P-Wing, no.
Okay. I was going to ask if you could put the P-Wing in the B-Wing, but I suppose...
Right now they have X-Wing, Y-Wing, A-Wing, the U-Wing from Rogue One, and then the B-Wing. And then on the Imperial side, you got TIE Fighter, TIE Interceptor, TIE Bomber, TIE Raider, which is kind of the U-Wing counterpart, which both those are like support vessels. And then they added the TIE Defender, which like, I mean, I haven't seen a TIE Defender. I don't know. I don't think I've ever played a game where you could pilot the TIE Defender. I think maybe some of the old X-Wing games or the old TIE Fighter games let you do it, but it's been a very long time since you've actually been able to pilot a TIE Defender.
I think it's really interesting from hearing your description of this that it seems you can kind of pick the ship that you want to be, and you have a whole team, but you are that support function, whatever you choose, is that's kind of going to be what it is.
Each ship kind of has a purpose. Like your X-Wing, it's called your fighter class, and it's your all around. Y-Wings are bombers, A-Wings are interceptors, so they're really fast and they're good against other fighters, but they don't carry a lot of ordnance, so they're not good against capital ships. Whereas a Y-Wing is slow but can take a lot of damage and carry some very powerful weapons that are good against capital ships. And then your X-Wing's in between, and then you got the U-Wing, the support class. What's interesting, and then the TIE Fighter, Bomber, Interceptor, and Raider on the Imperial side all kind of match. It is interesting. The B-Wing is very much like another type of bomber class, like even more of a bomber than a Y-Wing, but even worse at probably fighting starfighters. But then like the TIE Defender is almost more like an in-between between a fighter and an interceptor. So
they're not
like
all
it's deviating.
So they're not all quite 1-to-1 on Rebel versus...
Right. And even like the TIE Bomber and the Y-Wing jump to mind is they're the starting bomber, but they have different weapon loadouts they can pull together.
That's cool.
So they still play very differently. And obviously on the Imperial side, the bomber, the interceptor, and the fighter have no shields, whereas all the Rebel Alliance ships have shields.
See, I like that. I like, even though there's the counterparts, they're not mirrors to each other. Like, what's it?
It certainly makes it interesting. I said it remains very fun. Having that Antilles run where I dominated was a lot of fun. I did record a video that I'm working on getting edited up. We'll see how it comes out when I get it, but hopefully I'll get that posted. If I don't get it posted either in the next couple of days, it's probably going to be a week before I get it posted, because with my birthday coming up and some of the things I got planned, I probably just won't get around to it till the weekend after.
Sean's
next.
planning on popping his hip again, baby.
God, I hope not.
We're gonna fire.
I really
him.
heard.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fire him.
You're gonna fire me or Sean?
Sean, if he doesn't get that video up.
Right. No, that's a good idea. I forgot. We are all about productivity here.
All right, now it's time for the topic of the week. This week, we're going to rank stuff. I got an itch. I wanted to rank some things with my two best friends in it.
Karch loves his list.
I love my lists. And so we decided this week we're going to rank the top 3 best console launches in our personal opinions. Already some fighting words getting thrown around. So let's get to Jason's and see how Sean really feels.
Okay, so we are talking about best console launches of all time, and we determined that what we wanted to do was talk about the launch window of the console, not launch day. Each of us kind of came up with our own criteria for what the launch window encompasses, but when Karch and I talked, he said he was using a 6-month window. I kind of adopted that same mentality. Sean, what did you use for your range on launch window?
Day.
Oh, you stayed with launch day.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I ran out of time to do research, and launch day was easier to research by trying to then also bring up the next 6 months.
No, that's true. That's true.
A lot easier.
So, I mean, I kind of, Karch said, go with your heart, go with your gut. And so I did a combination of like, what came out around the time? And then like, what did I just, for me personally, like, what did I feel? So I'm going to start out with we did top 3. I'm going to start out with my number 3. And I have a tie. And I thought this was interesting. I kind of just did a tie because I thought this was so interesting. But the Super Nintendo launched in September of 1991. And the N64 launched in September of 1996. The 2 launch titles for the Super Nintendo were Super Mario World, which was a pack-in game, and Pilot Wings. along with F-Zero. And for the Nintendo 64, the two major launch titles were Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64. So I thought that was really interesting that those two, I mean, I guess that Nintendo kind of thought, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they kind of went with the same thing.
I actually remember this going into that release, that Nintendo was trying to kind of like, hey, we're going into the 3D era, and they were kind of pushing for bringing some of their classics forward. So that was, I think my recollection is that was very deliberate on their part.
Which I think
had to have been.
I'm not going to sit here and say it worked out for them in terms of console sales, but I think the N64 is certainly iconic, and anybody who call themselves a gamer who was alive at that time, I think probably at least experienced the N64, if not owned one.
It's fondly remembered.
That's all I have for it. I don't have a lot to say about it. I mean, I remember I've talked about this on the pod before. I had my 90s kid experience of unboxing an N64 on Christmas morning, and the freak out moment that's probably on film somewhere in my parents' attic. Patreon subscribers, maybe if you pay me enough, I'll go dig it out. But gosh, I mean, I had a Super Nintendo as well.
Do I have to throw at you?
But do you guys have any memories tied to these? And were either of these consoles on either of your lists?
No, to the second question. I got a 64. I want to say if it came out that September, I probably got it later that Christmas, maybe the next year. Let's see, 96 I would have gotten probably like the next Christmas after that. At that point it was packed in with Diddy Kong Racing. So that's however long it took for Diddy Kong Racing to come out. I was still stoked. But yeah.
I got a 64 in 97 because my older brother got it for his birthday the following year. And I think ours came packed in with Super or Mario 64. But I don't think I really played it much until Ocarina of Time.
Sounds about right. It's a trash system. Everybody hates it.
You're a trash system, Karch. What do you have on your list, Tom? What's your number 3? So I can tear it down.
My number 3, you're not going to tear it down because it's your number 1. It's the Switch. It's a great console. And this is the only console on my list whose launch is elevated because of the console itself. Because its only remarkable game is Breath of the Wild, and it's one of the most remarkable games I've ever played. It did something I don't know if any other game could have done, and that is put eyeballs on Nintendo again, and on this console that if a different game or maybe even no games had come out, people might have just written off, what's that toy? But because Zelda made them feel so good, I think it set a mood that made them far more receptive to what the Switch could offer, even if they might have been a little bit saltier because people just they like to jump on a bandwagon, and for the last 4 years prior to that, the Wii U was a joke, and so it was just easy to continue that joke, but they could not deny that there was something special here, and I certainly couldn't deny it either. The second I saw it, I knew I had to have one. I didn't get it launch day. I had it maybe a month later. Bought it off of some guy at work, and I don't think there was any other major game aside from Mario and Rabbids, which is a fantastic game. It's a nice little launch window game. It's one of those kind of quirky. It had the touchstone of the Mario and the Rabbids. It's a familiar IP, but you've combined them into something completely new. In a totally goofy genre of the tactics turn-based combat, like XCOM style stuff. And it is this perfect little window, or a perfect little launch window game. Mario wouldn't come to the Switch until October, so I didn't include that as part of it. It's probably why it might have sat
Mario
as low
Kart
as it
8's
did.
kind of in the launch window time frame, though.
Yeah, it was. I think that came out in May, if I'm not mistaken. So, and to be fair, I hadn't played Mario Kart 8 yet, but I don't know if I got that right away. I think it took a while before I did get Mario Kart 8.
It kind of saddens me that you put it so low on your list, because
put it so low on my list. It's number 3 of all time.
What?
It's number 3 of all time. There's only 3.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see what your number 2 and your number 1, but like to me, this console, and like you said, it was kind of a pivotal moment and a defining moment for Nintendo. But what I think makes it so great is they ensured to be strong in different categories of games. I mean, obviously you have Breath of the Wild, and that was a launch title. But if we're talking launch window, they also had a lot of great remakes from the Wii U that never really got a lot of attention because they were on.
I think you're starting to get a little too wide in your scope, though.
Right.
You're starting to talk about the Switch in general.
And your Donkey Kong Tropic Freeze, which came later. But then also at launch, they had a lot of great third-party games that were announced within the launch window, like NBA 2K18, which is a big deal in Skyrim. I think also, if I'm not mistaken, the FIFA game was also on the Switch that year.
Yes, it was.
And so, like, to me, so you've got a strong first-party offering. You've got strong exclusives. You've got remakes from your previous generation. You've got a lot of third-party support saying, hey, we're porting games to this. It's not just Nintendo. It's not just obscure second-party games. It's NBA 2K18. It's Skyrim. It's FIFA. It's, we're bringing these, it's not like the Wii U. We're not going to put Mass Effect 3 on it 4 years later. And then their third leg was indies. You had original exclusive indies like Snipper Clips, but then you also had Shovel Knight, you had Celeste, you had Stardew, you had Binding of Isaac. And to me, this was a very strong showing in that indie segment that at that time Sony had abandoned because they became way too comfortable in the later half of the PlayStation 4, that mid-generation. They had come out strong at the launch of the PS4 saying we support indies, and as they had all of their really, really strong first-party and second-party offerings, they kind of abandoned the indie developer, and Nintendo said, hey, we'll take them. And this was the console to own indies on, above Steam, above the PlayStation, above the Xbox. Take them on, then go. I don't know. To me, this was like masterful and amazing.
I would argue too. I mean, I agree. Its indie showcase was great, but that's also been a hallmark of Nintendo for a while. Like you talked about PlayStation, Sony abandoning the indies. They'd done that a long time. Indies had been living on the Nintendo handhelds for years at that point.
Well, even the Wii U was actually the Wii U. Nobody knew because nobody had it. Nobody was playing anymore. But the Wii U was actually also a very large, strong supporter of indies because, again, like you just said, at this point, PS4 had already abandoned it way before the Switch even came. Nintendo simply continued that, which I did. You're right, Jason. It is a really strong. Its indie showcase was a large part of what floated it during those first 6 to 8 months, especially before Mario came out, and Mario Kart had a chance to really take off. As far as people getting it for that and getting it once they had their Switch. And up until this point, like it's not like I didn't know about indie games, but I wasn't playing them almost at all. I wasn't on Steam. I'm not a PC guy, even though I could have, at the time. And it speaks to, again, both the console's strength and a little bit of stubbornness from Nintendo and publishers that, so many of these indie games come out full price to this day when they come to Switch, even though they might have been on another platform for 2 years prior.
Well, the flip side of that coin is you get games like Hades that still isn't on the PlayStation 4.
Get out of here with Hades. Came out this year.
Yeah, I mean, it came out last year, and it came out for PC and Switch, and that's it. And I mean, that's a testament to the way Nintendo supports those developers, and I think that's a very strong third leg of the Switch. They've got their originals. They've got a lot of great third-party support. I mean, certain developers, at least, like Bethesda, who they've brought The Outer Worlds, they brought Doom 2, they brought the newest Wolfenstein game.
You're getting so far off track.
We're moving away from launch into Nintendo's business.
No, I get it. I'm just saying
but you're continuing down.
They set a foundation to build upon, and they've stuck to it to this day.
They did.
Is my point.
Yes, they did. It's a valid point.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why it's my number one. I know we skipped ahead. That's why it's my number one.
He's so excited. Sean, what's your number 3?
Well, so Switch doesn't make any of my top 3.
You fake fan.
So I'll justify it right now. I hadn't owned a Nintendo console since the Wii, and the Switch was not what was going to get me to buy a Nintendo console again. Breath of the Wild eventually did after I saw more about that, but that's kind of the only thing at the time that spoke to me. And so we'll see some other games that actually spoke to me on other launches, admittedly at different times of my life, because gaming's dominance in everything that I do has shifted a little bit as I've gotten older. That said, kind of on a similar vein, though, I do want to give an honorable mention to the Wii. Not just because Wii Sports was on there, but it was the first time a Legend of Zelda launched on one of their Nintendo consoles.
It's pretty amazing.
Now, admittedly, it cross launched with the GameCube version, but you actually got a release of a Legend, which I mean Breath of the Wild did too with the Wii U, but you got a Legend of Zelda at launch, which we hadn't seen before at that point.
What about was it Wind Waker? No, what was the one that was cross GameCube and I guess that was Twilight Princess?
That's Twilight Princess.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm on board. Sorry.
My number 3 actually goes further back, and it actually goes to the Dreamcast.
Nice. I considered researching that.
Launched with Hydro Thunder, it launched with Sonic Adventure, and it launched with Soul Calibur.
Calibur's so
Hydro
good.
Thunder, obviously not still, I think, an active genre anymore, but a game that I think we probably all have fun memories of playing, whether it was on a console or at an arcade. Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur would both spawn sequels that I would greatly enjoy, but were games that, while I didn't enjoy as much as their sequels, I greatly enjoyed playing them at the time.
Did you have a Dreamcast?
Yeah.
How did I not know that?
Dreamcast just kind of died eventually. So
yeah, I don't know if I knew you had a Dreamcast either.
Say the year 2001?
I couldn't tell you when I got it anymore.
Okay, I was just curious because I don't remember. I mean, I'm not saying that you didn't. I just don't remember. But that's awesome.
We'll see with my list that I have a particular focus on at launch day. Was there an ability for was there a breadth of games that not only I would be able to play, but also that would entertain my brothers, because that was fairly important to have much of a shot up until the Wii. For me to have much of a shot at getting a console. Well, I guess the GameCube and I'd saved up, but getting a console around launch.
Cool. Yeah, no, Dreamcast is great console. Great console.
It was. A sad final entry there for Sega, but there's a lot of great gems on the Dreamcast.
Too little, too late.
Yeah,
that's all. All right, Jason, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a widely debated topic as to whether or not it's a console. And it is PlayStation VR.
I'll allow it.
Sean, will you allow it?
I mean, I don't really have a choice, but I disagree. I think it's a peripheral.
I don't know, because
I think it would be like me saying that Majora's Mask counts as a launch for the expanded memory Nintendo 64.
I disagree with that. I do. I think it's a whole other. I mean, it's a whole other console. It really is. I mean, I understand you could totally categorize it as a peripheral, but you could totally categorize any VR headset as a peripheral. And to me, it opens up this whole different avenue of games. I mean, would you classify an Oculus for the PC or a Valve Index for the PC? You would classify that as just a peripheral?
I would not classify them as consoles.
I guess I do, only in that it allows you access to an entirely different library of games that you did not previously have access to.
No, I don't disagree with that.
So I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't want to define what a console is, but you couldn't play any of these games I'm about to talk about without some sort of head-mounted device. So this console came out in October of 2016, and all the games I'm about to talk about came out within 3 months of this console coming out. You've got Batman Arkham VR, Job Simulator, Battlezone, Valkyrie, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Until Dawn Rush of Blood, Star Trek Bridge Crew, Werewolves Within, Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin. Not to mention, in terms of AAA, you have Resident Evil 7 VR exclusive to the PSVR, and I think to this day it's a VR exclusive. I don't think you can get that game on PC. And you also had Star Wars Battlefront Rogue One. There was an exclusive X-Wing mission that was VR, and it was exclusive to the PSVR. So what I think is so interesting here is you have got Batman Arkham VR, which is a Rocksteady developed. You've got a plethora of these indie developers. You've got Double Fine with the Psychonauts. You've got Capcom with Resident Evil and EA with Star Wars Battlefront. It's amazing how much support this initially got. And I just have to give... I mean, first of all, that's an incredible library to offer at launch. And again, this is like a $400 peripheral, we'll say. I mean, it's the price of a console.
Mm-hmm. I will give it that it's a certainly better offering than most Sony consoles get at launch.
Right? I know, right? And I just have to give the nod to PlayStation VR because I feel like the fact that they kind of pioneered affordability in that VR space to an average consumer. Because prior to this, your options were to get like a CV1 Oculus, which was off the charts and required a super high-end PC, or you were dealing with the Valve's HTC headsets, which again required an extremely powerful PC. This was like, oh, if you have a PSVR, $400, entry level for consumer VR prior to this. There was no Oculus Quest. There was no, oh, I'll just go grab this standalone device and it's $300, $400. You had to have a heavy duty PC to play these types of games. And not only that, like developers wanted to develop for this, which I think it's incredible. The fact that they got Capcom to make an exclusive VR version of Resident Evil 7, and I've heard rumored like this is part of the reason they made Resident Evil 7 first person was so that they could put it in VR. Is incredible. They had people come out of the woodwork. They had in the launch, not the launch window necessarily, but a year later, they had Bethesda make Fallout 4 and Skyrim in VR exclusive to the PSVR. They had Gearbox make Borderlands 1 exclusive to the PSVR. They took all these giants and convert their games to VR exclusive for the PSVR, not to mention giving latitude to some developers to make like rigs. Now, granted, didn't they shut down the studio that made rigs? So that's a little bit bad. But in addition, they came out with this peripheral called the PSVR AIM, I think is what it was called. And I'm trying to remember the name of the game that came with it, but it was like some sort of spider first-person shooter where you were on a planet and you were like killing all these spiders. Farpoint was the name of the game. And so they kind of gave this platform for developers to use their imagination. They had a banging launch window. And I know I've talked about this for a long time now, and I know neither of you owned a PSVR, but I'm calling this one of the best console launches of all time.
I mean, I remember being stoked about the idea. I thought I'd like VR. It turns out I didn't. I find it very uncomfortable, and I don't find the benefits outweigh that uncomfortability. But it's a shame that it was as strong as it is. Like, seeing you listed out, I remember most of these. Only two on here I don't recognize on this list, but man, did it not work out the way they wanted to,
Yeah.
And not for lack of at least trying out the gate. But it's kind of starting to fizzle.
You think about that time when it launched, because everyone was convinced that the VR was going to take off now. Now was the time of VR. Right. And I'm sure And because the PSVR was the budget option for entering that realm, and because it was also tied to the PS4 and its incredible consumer base, compared to trying to sell these things to people with high end gaming PC rigs. But yeah, like you said, Karch, it has also just kind of tapered off ever since then.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to. There was a time at which PSVR had outsold Valve, HTC, and Oculus combined.
That's because it was the entry option, and because you didn't need the PC, you just need the PS4, which 114 million people have.
Yeah, I think the price point hurt this too much. I think that at the end of the day, it's initial, like it's what didn't cause the ramp up, because as well as it did, it's still the best performing it's still the best performing VR unit, if I'm not mistaken, out of any single brand. Maybe the Oculus family probably outdoes it, but it's rare you see such a strong beginning not carry into the next following years. Did it really come out in 2016?
Yeah, it did.
Oh my gosh, that makes me feel older than the Final Fantasy VII launch.
I mean, honestly, the closest. What was I gonna say? Never mind. Sorry.
You're forgiven. I forgive you.
Thank you.
It was a good presentation, though. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
My next one is the Game Boy Advance.
Nice.
Man, I love this little console. It was a good console. It had a lot of good games. Not launch day, though. Real weak, immediate lineup. I remember I didn't get it right away. I got it pretty soon, but I didn't get it right away. But they came out with Super Mario Advance 2, which was just a port of Super Mario Brothers 2, which is one of the least liked Super Mario Brothers game of all time. I don't know what they were thinking with that, but what it did do was it laid the groundwork for the GBA to become this little retro machine. Yeah. Previously, we didn't have anything like backwards compatibility. That wasn't a thing. I mean, maybe on PC in some respects, but you could play your Game Boy's games in this. So this was the first console, handheld or otherwise, that you could buy. And then, well, I guess you could make an argument that the SNES had the Game Boy player, but I won't. It's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. So this was installed with it.
Right. So you could buy this console, even with maybe potentially a week launch day, launch week lineup, knowing that all those Game Boy games, they're coming with you. Plug them in, and they're going to play just fine. They'll stick out because it wasn't designed for such large cartridges, and it was a little awkward. It didn't have that backlight right away. That would have made things really nice, and eventually we get the clamshell, but not for another 2 years or so. Yeah. But some really good games that came out within those first 6 months. Advance Wars. Whew, is there just nothing like Advance Wars, and I miss it so much. I wish they'd come out with more. Like I said, the Super Mario Advance games would continue. Mario Kart Super Circuit, I don't think gets enough love as far as what it did for the Mario Kart series. I mean, everybody loves Mario Kart 64, and it's a pretty good game, but Mario Kart Super Circuit on the GBA is hard. It mostly because it is on a tiny little D-pad, and D-pad driving really hurts your thumb. That game killed my hands, but you start to see what Mario Kart is going to do with some of its the trickiness of the tracks and the time trials and just the style and the design of them eventually that you would see in Double Dash and the Wii one, Golden Sun. People love that game. I like it well enough, but Sun, yeah, it's pretty good. A nice little brand new JRPG IP that is just not something that comes along every day. There were several Castlevania games on it, and then eventually the DS, but it was kind of this, I don't want to call it a rebirth because it wasn't that long before. I think GBA came out in 2001. Yeah, 2001. And I think Symphony of the Night came out in 98. So it wasn't that long, but basically this continued that legacy, this idea of the Metroidvania style Castlevanias. They wouldn't have existed on anything else necessarily except for the GBA, with Circle of the Moon, I think was the first one. and then they had Aria of Sorrow and a couple others. And yeah, it's a great thing, great little console. I have a soft spot for handhelds. I love handhelds.
I was always sad that I never got an SP. I enjoyed my OG GBA, but I think if I'd had an SP, I probably would have played it even longer.
Dude, you would have. It was so good. I never would have played as much Harvest Moon without it.
I did not have a Game Boy Advance. Greg did, which I was super jealous of, but I didn't get one until the SP in 2004.
Tiny little cartridges. They were so fun. And it opened the idea of playing of your handheld being something that could interact with your main console. And more than just plugging Crystal Chronicles. I mean, and I don't know if this was a launch, so now I am getting a little off track. It's not why I like it for, like good launches, but it's just a good console. Sean.
So my number 2 is the GameCube.
Nice.
You're looking at, big launch games. You have Luigi's Mansion. You have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, which was still kind of considered, maybe not the high point of 1 and 2, but still a quality entry.
I think people love
one of my favorite games, Rogue Leader.
Yeah.
Came out at launch. In fact, I think I know for a fact that I got that. That was like the only game I got, when I got GameCube there at launch night. But you look at the rest of its launch lineup at day and 2, it came with a full breadth of just about every sports game. And there was a baseball game, there was I think an NFL Blitz, there was an NHL game. So you got a pretty good breadth of games. I think it was only a couple months later that Sonic Adventure 2 Battles and all the wonderful Chow Garden time that we spent that came out. And then I certainly probably have a sweet spot here because it was the first console that I could actually have afforded to buy. It was the first time that I bought a console at launch and didn't get it a year or two after the fact. But yeah, I look back at all of my gaming, and I think the GameCube has the sweetest, the most nostalgia along with it, and was probably also the sweet spot of age and amount of time I had to play games. But I remember being super excited of going from the 64 to the GameCube, somewhat during my fact that I knew I could afford the GameCube at launch, but seeing that graphical jump from the severe polygons, the very rough polygons of the Nintendo 64 era to the GameCube, which really kind of smoothed out, especially with a game like Rogue Leader, which because of the nature of what it was trying to render looks to this day still pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
I will never forget going to your house, Sean, and playing Super Smash Melee for the first time.
We played so much Melee.
I know, and I did not have a GameCube at the time. That was the first time I had ever seen anything out of the GameCube. We had an N64, and I just remember being totally blown away.
The step in graphical improvements going from the 64 to the GameCube is just I think is probably. I don't want to say it's bigger, but it's certainly I think the most noticeable improvement of all the of all the 3D consoles.
I agree. I don't think we're ever going to get a jump like that.
I did. Mm-hmm. I saved up like a year and a half's worth of allowances and like birthday and Christmas money because I knew it was coming in order to have enough money to buy that thing when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And seriously, I really don't think we're ever going to get another jump like that. Everything else since then truly has been very iterative. I mean, it just has.
Yeah. All right, Jason, do you want to talk any more about your Switch?
No, I think I said everything I need to say about it. It's awesome. It was a great launch. It was masterfully crafted by Nintendo. You had the great the great original titles. You had the great remakes. You had the third-party support, and you had the indies. And that's like the triangle that you need is like good first party, good third party, and your third leg is the indies. And it's been fantastic, and it's successful to this day. So that's all I have to say about it.
Very strong. Very strong. All right. My number 1 is the GameCube.
Nice.
The reason, a lot of reasons. It's nostalgia for the most part. Looking back, and it's probably one of my favorite consoles of all time. But I had, prior to its launch, was around the time that I had finally got my own Nintendo Power subscription. The GameCube was the first time that launch hype was a thing. Like I had never experienced launch hype. Like I don't know if I remember the 64 coming out, but at some point I became aware of it after the fact, and I understood the concept of a new, better piece of technology that played cooler looking, more sophisticated games, even if like it just stopped at like, oh cool, like as far as I thought. But this was the first time I absorbed everything I could get my hands on at the time, at least, and anticipated and needed. I needed this console. I eventually would get it probably the next year. I got it because I got good grades. It was one of those like, get straight A's and we'll give you, we'll get this for you. My dad of all people, who had never purchased me a console before, made this deal. So that was kind of big too. Like, so while I didn't pay for it like Sean did, I earned it all the same. And so it has that special, memory as far as just like nostalgia in the launch. But $200, this sucker was only $200, which is, how do you beat that? Even in 2001, that's still a really good deal. $100 less than its competitors. I'll never understand how it must be the mini discs. It has to have been the mini discs that
well, they didn't license DVD technology.
Right. But that's my point. That has to have been what stymied a lot of third-party support, which is what people always point back to. Although I remember a lot of third-party. I'll never understand what this was. Was it because it was a small purple box? I think what it was, if I'm being honest, is Xbox and PlayStation both got they had a few more mature games. And you talk about like the Halo launching with the Xbox, and this is where Nintendo really took a hit on as kind of that gaming group that that we're kind of in that core timeline. Right. As we were getting older, that Nintendo became that's your kiddie console. If you're still playing Nintendo, you're a kid, and people were moving on to the PlayStations and the Xbox. Post 90s edge syndrome where you just had to be cool and hard and Twisted Metal and Tekken,
Grand Theft Auto.
Anyway, I'm getting off track. Like Sean said, Luigi's Mansion. Who would have thought? What a great little IP. Rogue Squadron 2, fantastic follow up to an already fantastic 64 game. Jason, do you remember playing 8-inch hits?
Oh my God! Scratch your nuts, Ferdinand. Do I remember?
That's right. In my opinion, better than Blitz.
Better than Blitz every day.
It didn't come out launch day, but I think it was literally only 2 weeks later. Super Smash Brothers Melee.
It had that cross-eyed hockey
Did it come
player
out
on it?
that soon? God.
Yeah, it was only like 2 weeks. It was supposed to be a launch title in the US at least. Like it was supposed to come out with the US because GameCube came out maybe like 4 months prior to this in Japan. And it only had 3 games for a really long time. Luigi's Mansion, some sort of Wave Racer, I think.
Yep.
And then Super Monkey Ball. I hate
Super
Monkey Ball. Can
I just say I don't like Luigi's Mansion, and Mario is Missing for life.
You can say that, and I love Mario is Missing for all of its goofiness, but I will say that Luigi's Mansion is better.
It probably is,
especially on the concept of Mario is Missing, because it's essentially that without the dumb educational component.
I honestly don't remember. We rented Mario is Missing, so I don't remember.
I think I remember renting Mario is Missing and having no idea what. Like looking back, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I must have not been able to read it at that point because I had no idea.
I couldn't read either.
Yes, me neither.
And my mom wouldn't do it for me. I was like, Mom, I can't read this. Like, you should have got that game. Like,
Mario
Mom.
is Missing release date. Could we read? 1992. We couldn't read, boys. We were 3.
I mean, I didn't get it at release date, but I definitely got it way before I could read well. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Must have been in kindergarten at least, but still. Pikmin came out within 6 months of the GameCube launch. Another like what a wonderfully weird but also just great little IP. That controller is amazing.
I miss that controller.
That's a good controller.
It's just so good.
Wavebird
has nothing shoulder buttons.
Yeah, the Wavebird is the best wireless controller of all time. Sorry, Xbox Elite. You're close.
It is.
You're close.
It is absolutely hands down, without a doubt. I know people dog on the C-Stick. I'll never understand why. It works perfectly. There's nothing wrong with the C-Stick.
The only reason they do it is because it feels weird to have a little weird C-Stick if you were talking modern games that had that, that the way that first person controls today.
Shooters would be a little rough.
I would like to play one though with a GameCube controller and see just how it feels.
If you judge it off the games that were available, it was a freaking fantastic controller.
Mm-hmm. And then I didn't understand what a mini disc meant in the grand scheme of things, but I loved how tiny they were. I loved those stupid little things.
I wish the boxes were smaller. I don't know why.
Right, they were large. I mean, they still had manuals back then, so those were still appropriately sized for that. But excuse me. But yeah, this was. I mean, Jason, you said you hadn't ever seen a GameCube or anything like it before when you played it at Sean's. It wasn't long before you guys had one because I definitely played Melee, Super Smash Brothers Melee for the first time at your place. So you guys, you must have walked away from Sean's house and said, "Hey, parents, we need this now." So
Sean, you got it at launch. It was November, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then I convinced my parents to get it for Greg for Christmas.
Nice.
So it was a month later.
So yeah, I probably got it the end of that school year. I probably got it at that report card, and then a week or so later, we went to the store and got it. And because by then I got Smash Brothers. And I got something else. I don't remember what it was, but I got at least 2 games. So again, my launch window is really that's why it's a little bit different from me, but all the same points still apply. It was a really, I think the most important part of why I would rank this number 1 is again because this is the first launch that was a launch to me. I was there. I remember it. I was in it and absorbed it.
What's wild is you're saying that, and I remember being hyped, but literally I didn't have Nintendo Power. I didn't look this kind of thing up on the internet, but the hype was from you two.
Yeah.
I remember you could talk about
mostly
Project Dolphin.
I think I got a Nintendo Power during the GameCube, which meant Karch had Nintendo Power, and I know I got it because of him. I would have been hyped about the GameCube because of what he was showing me out of the Nintendo Power.
I remember you guys
knew
talking
that
about
it was called Project
Dolphin.
That's how
middle school.
I knew.
Remember the Space World 2001 demo for Zelda?
I do.
How bonkers we went over that.
I don't know if I think that was after it launched, but still, it was bonkers.
I just remember you two talking about Project
we
Dolphin.
thought we were going to get that on the GameCube.
Yeah, we did.
We ended up getting what was probably an even better Zelda that got...
Probably. We'll never know.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Jason?
Oh, I was just saying I remember you two talking about Project Dolphin in middle school and just being totally hyped for what does next gen. So we knew N64, that's 64-bit, and next gen's going to be 128-bit. And what's that mean? It's going to be photorealistic. We were just so hyped.
We were. Good times.
So,
Sean, what's your number 1?
Moving on to my number 1. The big thing that struck me on this was, I went and I looked at all the launch games, Xbox 360, PS4, Xbox 360, PS3, Xbox One, PS4, and then the Xbox Series and PS5. They do not have good launch lineups. None of them do.
No, I think it's because they can lean on backwards compatibility.
And that might be part of it. I mean, obviously, Microsoft tried to get Halo in for the series, which would have been the first time I think in a while that a major exclusive would have launched on one of these, been part of the launch lineup for one of these consoles. But I think that's part of the reason why I 360 onwards, I really haven't been all that excited about console launches. It's just been all right, cool, new hardware, but you got no good game for me to sit there and really sink my teeth into. That no game that gets me excited.
They had all this time too, and they just you think they'd figure it out.
And really, backwards compatibility has made that even more of it. I can play most of these games on my existing console. What's the value proposition of upgrading?
Yeah. I mean, by the time that we're usually ready for one, there's already a lot of value proposition. But yeah, I mean, like you said, there's just nothing there at the beginning.
We're not missing anything on the PS5 right now at all.
I don't have one.
I mean,
Godfall, man. Apparently, Godfall came out.
But we can. I'm pretty sure you can play that on PS4 or a PC. You don't.
Can. Oh, yes, PC you can.
See what I'm saying? We're not missing anything. We're not missing bug snacks. You can play that on the PS4.
All right, Sean. So modern consoles are disappointing. So what did you end up going with?
So I went all the way back to the OG, and I went to the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Heck yeah, man!
Good pick.
You have Duck Hunt. You have Super Mario Bros. You have Excitebike. You have Ice Climbers, which I had no idea was a launch. You you also have like every single sport had like there was tennis, there was hockey, there was a baseball game, there was a football game. Like it just looking at its of kind of putting it in the context of its time period and all the games that were available, the breadth of games that you had that launched. Yeah, obviously was not alive for the NES launch, but looking at it and being like, especially because the home console industry had kind of died a few years before, this thing came out with almost everything you could have expected to have wanted. And then plus, some of the games that have, Mario primarily that has moved on to be cornerstones of modern gaming.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Not to give the NES the credit it's due there.
We stand on the shoulders of those giants,
We do. It is like it's crazy to think how out of the park they hit it. Sorry, I felt like I was getting some background noise. They set something in motion. I don't know if they, in their wildest dreams, they would have ever foreseen this empire. Not just the Nintendo empire, but the gaming 30-something billion a year industry worldwide. Hundreds of millions of people playing every year and more every time. It's crazy.
Especially when they projected that the last console ever would be the PlayStation 4. And I think, if anything, this launch has been bigger. And it's pretty incredible. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense because I can't tell you how much I've spent on this PC. And I love it. I really do. But at the same time, and we talked about value proposition, you're talking about $400. You can play 4K games, even if they're upscaled. You can play 4K games. You can play them on a TV. You can play them at 60 hertz. I'm here to tell you, gaming monitors look like crap compared to an OLED TV.
They do.
I have an OLED TV and I have a gaming monitor, and this monitor looks like garbage. It's the only thing stopping me from playing more PC. You got backlight bleed. You've got blacks that look like gray. I mean, you just cannot replicate how great a TV looks, period. I'm sorry. And OLED technology is just not there. And I think consoles are very much alive. And I think that they do demonstrate their value. $400, $500. You can't buy a graphics card for $400 or $500. You can't.
Nope.
So, let alone
to say nothing of not having to worry about, do my particular combination of components, just happen to hit unlucky and this game's not going to play well for me, which is a risk you run into with games. Yep. Games are going to, incidents like Cyberpunk 2077 aside, they're going to run well on consoles, because the developers know the hardware that they're developing to.
Exactly. So there's definitely value there. I'm definitely going to buy a PS5 at some point. I need to reacquaint myself with what it feels like to play 7 feet back from the screen. That's really hard for me. I'm really struggling on this God of War. I'm used to either playing the Switch like 2 inches from my face or the PC monitor like 6 inches from my face. It's really hard to be 6 feet back, 10 feet back, or whatever. So, but yeah, I think there's value there. I think the console market's going to be around for a long time.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. Anybody have anything else to say before we leave this topic? It's a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, we have no listener questions this week. So I think that wraps it up for us. Anything in closing, boys?
No.
Not for me. I'll see you guys not next week, but the week after.
That's true. It'll be a classic 2-man podcast next week.
That is all we have for you today. You all have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play. I'm going to have to get a rectal exam at some point. And I just don't know how I'm going to handle it. I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'll be a trooper.